There's a recipe for getting your car running just right. And whatever you're cooking up in the garage, you'll find what you need at ebaymotors.com. They have over 122 million car parts and accessories in stock, all at the right prices. And that can help you turn your ride into something really tasty. The parts you need are just a click away at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
This is Speedball Mike Bailey. You're listening to Keepin It Strong Style. Yes.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we will announce the winners of the 2022 year-end awards and cover all this news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network, or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating interview. You can also get all the podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWWorld.com. Frequently updated and with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. Young boy, it's award season.
It is award season. Shout out to Danny for creating the NJPW EXT browser extension. My main man.
That's right. Yeah, shout out to Danny. If you're not using the extension for your New Japan World viewing experiences, definitely recommend using that. It makes it so much better.
You know, Jeremy, every now and again, not always, but every now and again, Aldi produces a pretty decent beer. And over the past few years, they've been getting better and better. You know how we say ratings, takes, and opinions are not a game?
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to my beer consumption, I always go to Beer Advocate to find out what other people are rating. And believe it or not, it's on a 5-star scale.
There's a Grapple app for beer.
I think Grapple app is a Beer Advocate for wrestling. But yeah, man, I'm drinking on this limited edition dry hopped sour from State of Brewing, which I think is the brewery that does all the Aldi beer. 85%. That's like a 4.5-star, beer. Pretty surprising. And I got to tell you, at $7 for a 4-pack, it's pretty good.
Wow. Can't beat that.
So we're drinking on that pack tonight. and we are here. It is, the culmination of an entire year of, ratings, takes, opinions, like I mentioned earlier. And here we are, the 2022 awards episode, which every year, it just gets more and more surprising how long we've been doing this. And, it's just awesome to see all the voices of those that voted and took time to, participate.
Yeah, so we'll start off the show here by going through each of the categories and announcing all the winners. And once again, thank you to everybody who voted. For those who
Hold on. I just got big news. The biggest crate sale ever. Save 40% on your first pro wrestling crate at prowrestlingtees.com. Only $17.97. This is crazy, bro. Their biggest crate sale ever. Oh man, it's not like I haven't gotten like a million of these. I need to take my phone number off of Pro Wrestling Tees.
Yeah, I need to. I just got the text too. Yeah,
bro, their biggest crate sale of all time, ever. It's crazy.
For the marks.
Yeah.
All right, so year-end awards here. So once again, thank you everybody for voting in that. If you're new to listening, we do these year-end awards towards the end of the year. Our grading period is from World Tag League to World Tag League. Got 20 categories here. Everybody voted. They gave their first, second place, and third place of votes. First place vote got 3 points. The second place votes got 2 points, and third place vote got 1 point. So we'll kick it off here with probably one of the biggest categories we have, the Wrestler of the Year, the Antonio Inoki Wrestler of the Year. So we had several nominees here, but our top three are coming in third place with 109 points, Tetsuya Naito. Coming in second place, 313 points, the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada. And coming in first place with 512 points, the Commonwealth Kingpin, the former IWGP US Champion, Will Ospreay.
Yeah, it's not really surprising for a lot of reasons that Will, was bestowed this honor. Looking at the voting, 426 first place votes. The next closest was Okada with 75. So this was a foregone conclusion. Like there was nobody else that was, even in the realm of potentially winning this. As great of a year as Naito and Okada had, like this was clearly the year of Will Ospreay. What's wrong with me with Will Ospreay? And he blew it away. From starting the year off with, the Rep Pro title, the IWGP title, the Warrior Wrestling title, headlining the Tokyo Dome, going throughout the year, dropping those belts, having incredible defenses, incredible matches, being the MVP of the G1 Climax, failing in the finals in what is probably the match of the year against Kazuchika Okada. And then, amongst all that, winning the U.S. title and then having the singular greatest U.S. title reign in the history of that belt's history. And that is including, the Jon Moxley and the Kenny Omega reigns. And he pretty much mopped both of them. And you look at the title defenses he had. I put out a infographic on our Twitter today from Dave Meltzer. He's got a 4.92 average match rating over 6 matches in like a 200-something day span. That's like unheard of. You're talking about like, I think the low point of his title reign is like the first match with Sonata, and even that is a banger. Everything after that, the match with Orange Cassidy, the match with David Finlay, Shota Umino, obviously the match that he just had with Naito and then Kenny Omega. It's really no surprise. Like in ring, there was nobody in the world that held a candle to Will Ospreay this year.
Yeah, Ospreay, it's another incredible year, very similar to his 2019 when that was another incredible year when he was like in every tournament that year, including the Super Juniors, G1. But yeah, man, Ospreay, he's undeniable. Once he's healthy and can get to the place he's trying to wrestle, there's just no stopping him. And so, the listeners, they see that, they saw that, everybody who voted, and I'll see. I think there was no other choice to go with here with Will Ospreay. Very interesting. Naito barely just squeaking into third place. Zack Sabre Jr. had 108 points. So Zack only needed 2 points to beat Naito there to get in third place. So
Well, the interesting thing when you're analyzing the difference between a Zach and a Naito, they were just 1 point apart. But Naito came in, had more first place votes with 48 points total to Zach's just measly 18. He didn't get very many first place votes. But when it comes to second and third place votes, Zach had a lot more fan support, just, taking the points away, just, casting ballots. More people cast ballots for Zach than they did for Naito, but there was a stronger contingency that felt that Naito had a first place year than Zach. So that was kind of what made the difference there.
Yeah.
But they're very, very similar.
Yeah. So, overall, really tight category here with all these areas pretty much below those top three. But kind of what we expected here with Ospreay running away and taking the lead.
Yeah, and I mean, not to overdo it on the Will Ospreay praise, but I mean, it is kind of crazy. Like 2022, like you mentioned, what was that year? Was it 2019 when he?
Yeah, 2019 where he did Super Juniors, G1. He might have been, I think he did New Japan Cup that year also.
He is probably peaked. Well, maybe not, but it's pretty close. But there's probably an argument that he's peaked higher, just in terms of top level match quality this year than he did in 2019. But in terms of total output and quality of the year, as great as 2022 was, it's still not even as good as his 2019 year was. And I mean, I'm just looking at, a cage match as a barometer here. And I mean, he's got 26 matches that are over 8, as well as over 4 stars from Dave Meltzer, many of them in the 4 3/4 and 5-star range. So, I mean, yeah, and I don't think there's anyone else really that was putting that kind of output anywhere in the world. I mean, and if there were, you'd have to probably, I don't know. It might be someone that's like, for instance, like maybe some of the girls from like Stardom or something like that are going to have less, high visual profile versus like a Will Ospreay. But like from like the 3 big companies, there's really nobody that held a candle to Will this year. And I mean, and he didn't just do it in New Japan either. I mean, we're talking about, his time in Rev Pro, GCW appearances, Warrior Wrestling, AEW, West Coast Pro. So, I mean, this was a guy that was really all over the place. And this was actually less of a busy travel schedule and working indie dates than what we're used to seeing from Will Ospreay, in all honesty. So it's kind of wild.
Yeah. One other interesting note, Jay White, this man was the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion for 6 months and, not even sniffing the top 3. I don't think we've ever had that really where the IWGP champion in the voting period is not even like in the top 3 at all.
That's true, but that, he just wasn't around that much. But, one thing that's really damning, and it kind of proves to a certain degree what I said when you and I were discussing possibilities. I said maybe we shouldn't put Ishii, maybe we shouldn't put Tanahashi in there. And I mean, those two, Ishii coming in with 57 points, Tanahashi coming in with probably his all-time lowest point total when it comes to these awards, just 21 points. And he was by far the least, performing candidate for Wrestler of the Year. And that's, really saying something considering it's Tanahashi.
Yeah. All right, you want to take us to the match of the year?
Yeah, again, congratulations, Will Ospreay, your 2022 Antonio Inoki Wrestler of the Year. So next up for the big 3, we have the match of the year. And we had quite a few nominees, but it really just came down to 3. So coming in third place, we have Tetsuya Naito versus Will Ospreay from Battle Autumn with 129 points. Coming in at second place, we have Kazuchika Okada versus Will Ospreay from Wrestle Kingdom 16 with 182 points. And then your 2022 match of the year, Kazuchika Okada versus Will Ospreay from the G1 Finals 32 with a grand total of 305 total points.
Man, once again, I mean, just another kind of blow away favorite here in the first place of votes. And This match of the year, these placements really just solidifies Will Ospreay's case for Wrestler of the Year. He's in the top 3 matches as voted by you guys, the listeners. And you look on Cage Match and Grapple, you will also see that all 3 of those matches very high ratings, very great reviews. So Will Ospreay really at the top of his game here. The 2 matches with Kazuchika Okada from last January for Wrestle Kingdom 16, and then the G1 finals from August, just 2 incredible matchups. Both of those matches are the top 2, spoiler alert, on my match of the year poll that I'll be submitting to the Voices of Wrestling. Just 2 absolutely incredible matchups, and to think that they're doing this stuff in clap crowd environments the past year, limited capacity buildings, and they still went out here and had incredible matches. The Naito Ospreay, I know a lot of people were kind of back and forth whether they like the G1 match or the Battle Autumn match better, but it seems like with the voting, when I look at other rating sites, the Battle Autumn match, it was more people like that match more than the G1 match.
Yeah, and I mean, they weren't far off from one another. The grand total for the Battle Autumn match was 129 points. The G1 match between Naito and Ospreay, which was our 4th highest rated match, was 109 points. So not too much of a variance between those 2, but it did. The Battle Autumn match definitely got more first place votes. But again, you're looking at Will Ospreay in the top 4 matches for the nominees here, and it's 2 duplicates. You're looking at him versus Naito and him versus Okada, and in both cases, we were very curious. Could they hypothetically be splitting votes between, those who preferred one match or the other? And all 4 of them came in the top 4. The next closest match that's going to come in at number 5 is FTR versus Aussie Open from Royal Quest 2. That's the first match on our nominee list that does not include Will Ospreay, and that one's at 105 points. So, again, Will just had a banner year and put on 4 classics with Naito and Okada here. And, I'm at the point now where I might want to go and rewatch the Okada and Naito series, both or at least from this year, both the G1 and the Wrestle Kingdom matches, kind of get a feel for how I sort of remember those matches now that we've kind of gained some distance from them.
Yeah. Well, now let's take a look at the show of the year. So coming in 3rd place with 170 points, Battle Autumn Night 16, which featured the aforementioned Tetsuya Naito versus Will Ospreay matchup. In 2nd place with 175 points, Wrestle Kingdom 16, Night 2. And then coming in 1st place with 328 points, the joint promoted pay-per-view Forbidden Door.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised at all. I'm going to just venture to say that Forbidden Door will likely be the show of the year on almost every wrestling publication and news site just across the board, not even just for New Japan, not just for AEW, but across the industry. And, it is something where there was definitely the allure of having a first-time crossover show between AEW and New Japan, so there was a lot of fan interest there. But this also was kind of taking place where a lot of the business and weekly television for AEW was very much, sort of in transition. There's a lot of injuries, people out, just different things that were sort of unforeseen. And when they originally envisioned the show, they had literally top to bottom an entirely different show, booked out. And then they had to kind of change everything on the fly because there were so many people that were out due to injury or various different extenuating circumstances. And a lot of people were kind of questioning, like, how is the show going to do in terms of pay-per-view buys and viewership and yada, yada. And then a lot of people were kind of complaining about the build. And all those are actually very valid complaints. They were at the time. And then these 2 groups went out there and put on the best show of the year. And it was something, it kind of reminded me a little bit of that WrestleMania, what was it, 31, where it had a terrible build and then they went out there and like put on one of the greatest wrestling, WrestleMania shows in history and people didn't expect it. That's kind of what Forbidden Door was a little bit. And, we had the pleasure of being able to watch that show on a giant screen at an AMC theater. It was just an awesome, incredible viewing experience. But top to bottom, I mean, every single match ruled, and it was just blow away. And again, the match of the night, Orange Cassidy versus Will Ospreay, was one that had everybody in the in the wrestling spectrum talking.
Yeah, Forbidden Door, just a home run success across the board. Like you mentioned, kind of a lackluster build, but once the show kicked off, even from the pre-show, the whole thing was just incredible. And so, the voters saw that as well. Historic Crossover came very close to getting third place. It had 169 points, 1 point shy of tying with Battle Autumn Night 16. Night 1 Wrestle Kingdom did pretty well too, 139 points. And then you had G1 32 Night 12 coming to 93 points. So those were some of the Dontaku had 129. So
I was gonna say I voted Dontaku and Crossover as my number 2 and number 3. I don't remember what order. I am a little surprised, but maybe not at the same time, to see Wrestle Kingdom sort of get as many votes as it did. Probably due to the fact that it did have the incredible Okada Ospreay match as the headline, but also the Wrestle Kingdom brand is, that's a show where even, people that are kind of lapsed or casual, they still tune in. So it's something that's going to stick with people. Plus just the marquee nature of it being Wrestle Kingdom. But for me personally, I thought that both Wrestle Kingdom, this is one of the first times in the history of this show with these awards where I thought neither Wrestle Kingdom really deserved to be in the top 3 personally, but obviously people felt differently.
Yeah, I don't think I voted for either night of Wrestle Kingdom. Also, I voted for Forbidden Door was my first place. I think I voted Battle Autumn and then Historic Crossover, or it was my other one.
Yeah, but Historic Crossover was very, very, very close to getting third place. It was not far off from Battle Autumn, which I thought Battle Autumn was a great show, but I guess we heard a lot of buzz when it occurred that people were saying it was one of the best shows of the year. I don't know if I felt quite that same way watching it as other people, but it seemed to leave an indelible mark for a lot of folks. So did very well here. But again, Forbidden Door, your show of the year 2022. So let's jump into the next award. We have the Jushin Thunder Liger Junior of the Year award. And coming in at third place with 161 votes, we have the former reigning IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, Taiji Ishimori. Coming in at second place with 289 votes, we have the current reigning IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, Hiromu Takahashi. And then your winner in a landslide with 523 total points, El Desperado, your 2022 Junior of the Year. And this is his second year in a row winning this award back to back.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised that he won it with such a landslide this year. Like I know he's very popular, but just looking at the year he had, to me, I feel like it was kind of a down year. Yes, he did start the year off strong by winning the junior title in the Tokyo Dome, but then he quickly lost the belt to Taiji Ishimori. He had great Super Juniors, but besides that, I feel like he was kind of downcycled for whatever reason in the booking and was kind of out of the mix until we got back to this 4-way.
Oh, I would disagree. Even though he wasn't in the title picture, he was one of the few juniors that still was kept relevant in any sort of way, even though they don't always do a great job of that. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was a participant in the New Japan Cup while he was champion, and he had that incredible match with Okada. He had the match in America with Jon Moxley, that death match. Obviously, I think that some of his exploits for the Takataichi JTO shows probably helped out here as well and kind of kept him in the public eye. But I wouldn't I don't want to understate how important his Super Junior run was. He was the MVP of the entire tournament. It wasn't just a good run. He was by far the MVP of the entire thing. And usually if you're the MVP of the Super Junior tournament, champion or no championship, that's enough to be considered the junior of the year.
Yeah, and then pretty much like you mentioned, anytime he was called into place to action, like the John Moxley match, or some of the other matches he had kind of throughout the summer, even Forbidden Door, him and Kanemaru teaming up and going against Swerve in Our Glory. Pretty much anytime he had a spot to go at, he went out and performed. I guess for me, it just kind of seemed like he was a little bit on the back burner just because he wasn't, the champion and have a strong reign. But yeah, I guess when you look back at his Super Juniors and some of the other stuff he's done, and then you mentioned like, some of the JTO stuff, yeah, he probably has a stronger year than I was thinking.
The other thing too, I don't think anyone else had as much like popularity as him, and even though maybe he did have a bit of a down year, because there definitely is something to that. It's not like the next two candidates, Hiromu or Taiji Ishimori, were really blowing the business away either. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
I felt like they were both having down years. So even if he wasn't having as dynamic a year as he did in, say, 2021, it was still enough to distinguish himself away from the rest of the pack. Plus, keep in mind, we had two Super Juniors in the same calendar grading period.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And he was the MVP of both of those tournaments. And that probably, even though Hiromu won both those tournaments, actually, Hiromu probably was the MVP of the 2021 tournament, but like,
Despy was right there.
Despy was right behind him, and then Desperado went out and was the MVP of the next year's tournament. And I think he probably had more great matches across the board than anybody else this year, including Hiromu.
Yeah. Another interesting thing here, TJP came in fourth place with 129 points. I didn't know if people were going to, kind of give TJP the respect he deserved just based off of some of the stuff he says on Twitter and just how people feel about him personally. But I think people, they saw what he was doing on Strong. They saw what happened with Catch 2-2, him and Francisco Akira, and just the work that he did this year in the junior division in America and Japan.
Also, being associated with the United Empire, we've already mentioned how this has seemed to be the year of Ospreay. It's also the year of the United Empire, and I think that affiliation has helped quite a few individuals in these awards and just in public perception.
Yeah. Well, let's move on now to the Tag Team of the Year. So coming in with third place with 227 points, the team of Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi Bishamon. Coming in at second place with 255 points, Catch 2-2, Francisco Akira and TJP. And then coming in first place, the 2022 Tag Team of the Year with 431 points, Kyle Fletcher, Mark Davis, Aussie Open.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily shocked at the outcome here, but I was really wondering going into the award season if there was enough longevity or body of work for Aussie Open to really stand a chance in the voting. But I do think that part of it is like this. New Japan isn't even necessarily a tag team oriented company necessarily. It's never been their strong suit. And so a strong tag team that comes in and has great matches and makes a connection with the fans and really leaves an impression can probably, and as we see here, garner fan support in a short period of time if given the opportunity. And that's exactly what they did. Now, I do wonder if there was influence on this award for the recent work that they did in the World Tag League, even though that's not considered part of our grading period. I have to assume that there's probably a lot of people that saw the run that they were going through during that tournament and maybe attributed some of it to them. But there's no denying that they've had an incredible year. The FTR match was something that everybody was talking about across the industry. They were the first ever strong openweight tag team champions and really were doing some excellent work on the U.S. brand over there. And then once they did come to Japan, a lot of people were, very amped for that and excited, and they made a huge impression. So my only question was whether or not they had enough of a body of work, but I guess that at this point it doesn't seem to have bothered the voters one way or the other, because what they did see, they were really impressed with.
Yeah, definitely the voters, they went with quality over quantity in this category, right. Especially with the second place team also, Catch 2-2. I mean, they formed halfway throughout the year and quickly gained a ton of momentum. They quickly won the junior tag team titles and just had a great, they're currently having a great run. They're on their fourth defense now. And just been having really good matches with, Bushi and Teton and 6 or 9 and their Super Junior League, even though I know it's part of next year's grading period. Their Super Junior Tag League was very, very good, had some of the best matches throughout the whole tournament. So again, a short kind of time period for Akira and TJP, but they gelled quickly and had a series of great matches.
Yeah, and it's exactly what I mentioned during the previous category that we discussed, is these teams that are aligned with United Empire, as great a year as they have had as a group, that's also kind of permeated over here as well. And I mean, it's it's almost synergistic, because these two teams had great years and that bolsters the reputation of the group. But at the same time, as they say, a rising tide raises all ships. So it's kind of like, as the group was gaining more notoriety, it was also helping them kind of ride that momentum as well. Now, I got to tell you, I voted for Bishamon number 1, and it wasn't because I felt like they peaked higher than these teams necessarily, but I felt like the length of time that they were teaming and all the work that they did, to me, was a little bit more like I kind of had to recognize that, I guess I would say. But it is hard to kind of argue against, like you mentioned, the quality over quantity. And like, these two teams made a huge impact in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, but with Bishamon, I mean, they won the World Tag League in the grading period. They won the tag team titles at the Tokyo Dome. So I mean, they had a ton of accomplishments in this grading period.
Great. Well, that's going to take us on to the next category. Again, your Tag Team of the Year, Aussie Open. Congratulations. And that's going to take us to the Carl Gotch Strong Style Award. And this is that award that we usually award to those who are about that life. They want all the smoke, and they showcase it with violence and technical acumen. And your top 3 winners, starting off with number third place, 213 points. We have Zach Sabre Jr., Submission Master. And in a very tight race, coming in second place with 316 votes, Tomohiro Ishii, which leaves us with our winner for the 2022 Strong Style Award, 365 points. Your winner, Shingo Takagi. And I believe this is his second year in a row, maybe third.
I think it's his third.
Wow. So, this kind of used to be the Ishii / Shibata Award, where those guys were always like at the forefront winning this thing. And, last few years, it seemed, even though it's always close between Ishii and Shingo's kind of dominated this award, for the past few years or whatever.
Yeah, this is one of the most fun to watch as voting was happening, because in the early half of voting, some of the early voters were all in on Ishii. Ishii kind of had a slight edge over Shingo, but then whatever happened, that second wave of voters came in and they were on the Shingo train, and it was really neck and neck towards the closing of the ballot. And you see in the first place points, Shingo 204, Ishii 183. So both of them are receiving a ton of first place votes from the listeners and very close in that. But then when you got into second place, Shingo kind of dominated second place votes. And they were kind of neck and neck with second and third place. But yeah, those first place votes really put Shingo over the edge there.
There was a point where you were like, it's really close between Ishii and Shingo. This is like coming down to like the wire. And I was like, it's not close. And you're like, I mean, it's close point wise. And I'm like, and at the time, like, Shingo was beating him in every category. And I'm like, Shingo has more first place, second place, and third place votes. It doesn't matter how that they're both in the 300s. Like, I was like, this guy won. It's already over. But yeah, man, Shingo went out there and, you know, he started the year off with the IWGP World Heavyweight title, headlining the Dome against Okada. He dropped that title, and people were really wondering what's next for him. And he talked about how there was a crown that was, you know, sort of in front of him, that he was going to take an alternate path. People were thinking he was going to go after like the GHC title and stuff like that. And it turned out that he was going to go after, you know, the KOPW title. And even though he kind of, you know, downplayed his involvement with KOPW all throughout the year, he had two of the best feuds, not just from a match quality standpoint, although it's part of it, but also from a character and backstage standpoint as well, with ELP and Taichi over the KOPW title, and had, you know, a trilogy of fantastic matches between both of those guys, not to mention everything else that he did in the G1 as well as the New Japan Cup, and really just had another standout year, even if it wasn't in the upper echelon main title scene.
Yeah, Shingo really elevated that the King of Pro Wrestling title this year. You know, it was a joke. You know, it was, you know, everybody saw it as kind of the Yano comedy hour. And then obviously Taichi got it off of Yano, and then that kind of kicked off the Taichi and Shingo series of matches, and some kind of, you know, wonky stipulations, but they really made them work with all those, you know, different count matches they had, and it was just really hard hitting stuff between Shingo and Taichi. And then you had the ELP feud, yeah, they had the goofiness with, you know, who's your daddy, but once the bell rang, those guys were killing it. You look at the New York street fight they had at the Rumble on 44th Street pay-per-view. They did some crazy, insane spots in that. And so, yeah, Shingo, I mean, yeah, he got downcycled from the, you know, world title picture, but he took that KOPW and made it meaningful, made it worthwhile, made it must-watch. And, yeah, I'm glad he's getting rewarded here with this the Carl Gotch Strong Style Award.
Nice. So, Shingo Takagi, your Strong Style winner of the year 2022.
Nice. Next, we'll go to the feud of the year. So coming in third place with 221 points, the feud between the United Empire and Los Ingobernables de Japón. So of course that would include the Ospreay and Naito matches. That would include Catch 2-2 versus Bushi and Teton. So really kind of encompassing, you know, all the feuds that those guys had together into one. And then coming in second place with 234 points, the feud between Shingo Takagi and Taichi. I mean, you know, mainly that happened around KOPW. And then coming in first place with 275 points, the feud between Kazuchika Okada and Tetsuya Naito. These guys feuding over the IWGP World Heavyweight title the past year, having a series of matchups there that were all really great.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to give credit where credit's due and throw flowers at this series of matches. It's a little bit forgotten now at this point, but it is one of the reasons that Okada and Naito both wound up in the second and third place, you know, standings when it comes to Wrestler of the Year. A lot of that is based off the work that they did against one another in the early part of the year, even though some of that eventually kind of became forgotten. They had a trilogy of matches that were really just outstanding, and some of the best work that they've done against each other, especially ever since the pandemic era started. And, you know, a lot of people were kind of fantasy booking them to have a fourth match either in the G1 or at this year's Wrestle Kingdom. So, I mean, there was an anticipation that they would have another to kind of fuel the series. But regardless of, you know, unfulfilled wishes, these guys had three really, really fantastic matches and kind of bolstered Okada's, you know, title resume for the brief period that he held the title in the first half of the year.
Yeah, and it's very interesting, too, just seeing how the voting played out here in this one. Very close point totals there between first, second, and third place. But, yeah, those series.
And fourth and fifth.
Yeah, so yeah, coming in fourth, we had Shingo and ELP 214, God and Bullet Club 194. So yeah, there was a lot of really good feuds this past calendar year in New Japan. Yeah, that God Bullet Club, also, that's with Jay kicking out Tama and Tangaloa and how that all played out, Hikuleo and all that stuff. So that was a really good feud there. Yeah, and then like we mentioned earlier, Shingo and ELP, those series matches they had for KOPW were also great.
Yeah, and I think that this is a situation where we are seeing probably most likely votes split between Shingo ELP and Shingo Taichi. Even though they were different feuds, I feel like with how similar the point totals were, if we hadn't had one of those listed here, it's definitely possible that one of those could have potentially been voted the feud of the year, but it probably split the vote just a tad bit.
Yeah. I'm happy to see that Rosser and Lawler got some love. They came in with 115 points. I know a lot of people don't always tune into New Japan Strong or pay full attention to what's going on with that rivalry, but
or will be able to in the future.
Right? Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, third year in a row, these guys won, the Strong Match of the Year for the New Japan voting that they do, and such heated angles of Tom shaving this man's head and. Some of the promos they did in that wild matchup they had where Rosser finally won the belt.
For me, in this calendar year, just from what I like out of wrestling, I think, and then also taking into account not just the in-ring action, but the actual heat of, when it comes to promos and when it comes to segments and stuff like that, nothing on this list to me truly actually touched Rosser and Lawler. I think they just kind of were hurt from a few things. Number one, being on Strong. Number two, the embargo against sharing gifts and sharing videos that are owned by TV Asahi. If hypothetically, if you'd been able to actively share what had gone down between these guys on social media, there's every possibility that the brand could have done better and this feud could have got more recognition. But because so few people saw it, and plus it's kind of seen as like a minor league thing, almost like an NXT to a main roster sort of visibility. That's why. But yeah, I am glad it got some 115 points. But yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, overall, yeah, a really good year of feuds in New Japan.
Yeah. So again, your winner this year, Okada versus Naito, the feud of the year. So that's going to take us to the Big Van Vader Gaijin of the Year award. We had a lot of great nominees. Your top three coming in third place with 172 points. We have the Switchblade Jay White. Coming in second place with 223 points, we have Zack Sabre Jr. And then your winner probably is no surprise based on the Wrestler of the Year voting. At 533 points, we have Will Ospreay, the Big Van Vader Gaijin of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, we've been singing, Ospreay's praises, all episode long so far, and just for the great work that he did this past year. And I mean, once again, yeah, he was the best foreign wrestler this past calendar year. I mean, we already listed all his accomplishments that he had this year, all the great matches, title matches, the work he did with the U.S. title, the AEW Trios tournament stuff, and all building up to the feud with Kenny. I mean, Ospreay just was on a next level and was just a step ahead of every foreigner on this list.
Yeah, when you have the kind of output and body of work that he had this year, it's sort of hard for anybody else to stand up to that. But this year, with United Empire sort of becoming more of a focal point and really gaining a standing in the hierarchy of New Japan, I think that helped quite a bit. I also don't want to, and of course, when if someone is a foreigner and they win Wrestler of the Year, they're very likely going to win Big Van Vader Gaijin of the Year. It's kind of just it's a foregone conclusion. But we would be remiss if we didn't also recognize the early work that Will Ospreay did on the New Japan of America brand, not just on Strong, but also on the pay-per-views. And he sort of headlined most of those pay-per-view ventures in the US as well, and sort of kind of helped to establish himself as a draw in the US for the New Japan brand as well, which probably helped a lot here too.
Yeah, the incredible Windy City Riot match with Jon Moxley, and then the four-way U.S. title match that they had at Capital Collision. Yeah, Ospreay had a lot of great stuff in the U.S. as well, and kind of during the end of the grading, or the beginning of the grading period, kind of closing off that feud with the LA Dojo. So yeah, Ospreay killing it in the U.S. and in Japan. So moving on to our next category, the Faction of the Year. So coming in third place with 223 points, Suzuki-gun, which this will be their last year.
They're never going to get a chance to win this ever again.
Coming in second place with 253 points, Los Ingobernables de Japón.
In 6 years of doing these awards, this is the first time ever that LIJ did not win this award.
So with that, coming in first place with 524 points, the United Empire. Will Ospreay, Catch 22, Aussie Open, Jeff Cobb, Great O'Khan, and Gideon Gray.
And Aaron Henare.
Yes.
It's fucked up of you to forget him.
My apologies, Henare.
I just want to say to anyone that's listening, it might sound right now that we are like some sort of United Empire like propaganda machine. This is not the fact. That is not what this show is. If you're just tuning in, please be aware, we did not decide these winners. This was voted on by the vast public, voting audience. So this is not something where we manipulated it or decided it. It just happens to be that this was the year of the United Empire, and it is the first time ever in the history of this show that Los Ingobernables de Japón did not win the award. There's been some years where it's been close. There's been many years where they blew people out, but this was not close by any measurable metric at all. United Empire ran away with this. And I mean, again, look at the awards. You've got Will Ospreay doing everything he's done, Aussie Open and Catch 22, pretty much dominating the heavyweight and junior tag scenes. Jeff Cobb and Great O'Khan also having very dominant years. Aaron Henare taking a step up, beating Tanahashi in the G1. Gideon Gray becoming like the top front man and manager in all of wrestling. I mean, it's not really that surprising. The only thing that is surprising is the vast difference between 253 points and 524 points. They almost doubled LIJ, which is just kind of insane, honestly.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, I knew
it's never happened before.
Like, I knew United Empire was going to do good, but I didn't expect them to do this good.
No.
Especially to, again, incorporating, some people who don't like Will, who don't like TJP.
Right.
I thought a lot of that hate might sway the voting, but it looks like the voters, voted what they saw on the television screens and what's happening in the ring. And it was undeniable that United Empire was going to run away with this thing.
Yeah, very surprising. I mean, I don't have much more to add here. The only thing I will say is, like, we've got Suzuki-gun in here. We got Team Filthy, TMDK, and, those groups are going to – and Bullet Club. And we mentioned this a few weeks back with Suzuki-gun disbanding and everything that's kind of happening in the fallout of that. We're getting new units. We're getting new groups. There's speculation with the future of the Bullet Club. Everything that's happening with the New Japan of America brand. We don't know if groups like Straw Dog Army or the LA Dojo or, all of that, what's going to happen with Team Filthy? What is the future of these types of, units? And then Team DK has kind of gone through a whole overhaul. And I got to imagine by the time we're doing the show next year, things are going to be very different. So, this is kind of the last year of, like, even though some of these groups are new, that, like, we've pretty much for the entire time we've done the show, we've had Bullet Club, Chaos, Hantai, LIJ, Suzuki-gun, and that's kind of going away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And next year it's going to be a whole different mix. I don't even know how we label just 4 guys, or if that's even going to continue. Do you think as they like lose or gain members, they change the names like just 3 guys, just 2 guys, just 8 guys? You know, what's going to happen there? I don't know.
I don't know. You know, Taka's got to push that just branding, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, yeah, depending on their year, just 4 guys could end up on here next year.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. But your winner, United Empire, first time ever. Next up, we have the Most Improved Award. Now, keep in mind, this is not just improvement when it comes to in-ring work. This could be improvement in any level or category. It could have to do with someone getting a push or gaining a higher measure of stature in the company. It could be an improvement in any measurable metric, whether that's promos or character work or in-ring work or what have you. So this is kind of an all-encompassing award. We had some really great nominees, but it came down to just 3. Coming in third place with 201 points, we have the Wild Rhino, Clark Connors. Coming in second place with 278 points, David Finley. And coming in first place with 293 votes, so kind of close here.
Mm-hmm.
We have your winner, the good bad guy, Tama Tonga.
Yeah, again, this was another really fun race to watch play out, especially between Tama Tonga and David Finley. Both these guys had really good years, and you see Clark Connors with third place. You know, Clark really elevated his game with the All-Atlantic tournament and filling in for Ishii there, getting that 4-way at Forbidden Door. I think a lot of people really discovered Clark Connors through that, and then just the work he did on New Japan Strong. He really improved throughout the year, and you know the title match with Tom Lawler. Then Dave Finley, you know, on this show all year we were saying, you know, Finley really needs to step it up. He needs to show us something. And he did that with that match with both matches with Will Ospreay, especially the U.S. title match. So incredible in-ring year there for David Finley. And then Tama Tonga, another guy where every year we're like, they need to do something with this guy, or he needs to do something different. And this year he did something different, became a babyface, got super over with the crowds, good promos. He was in heated feuds. Had some really good matches, won the Never Openweight title. So really elevated his stock, I think, across all categories here.
Yeah, I mean, typically this race comes down to, historically speaking, just 2 individuals, and it's usually pretty close between those 2 guys. It's sort of just been a pattern that we've noticed year over year. And those 2 individuals, whoever they are, whether they are the winner or the runner-up, they usually have had phenomenal years and go on to do great things in subsequent years. And that's kind of what you saw here from Dave Finley and Tama Tonga. In my book, either one of them would have been well-deserving to win this award. But Tama Tonga really did distinguish himself quite a bit with his run through the G1, his work joining up with Hontai and making himself, you know, this white meat, hot baby face, and, you know, basically questing to avenge the wrong that was done to him and his brothers, and gaining a sense of revenge from the Bull Club. And it's something that resonated with a lot of people. His work spoke for itself. And I mean, he not only has, you know, really pushed himself in the ring, but also from a physical standpoint, he won the Concurso this year. Just has added a lot of really cool little wrinkles to his overall presentation and his physical fitness. And I'm not surprised at all that Tama Tonga won here. And I'm pretty sure a lot of us voted him first place. So congratulations, Tama Tonga, most improved.
Yeah. So next up, the New Japan of America MVP. So coming in third place with 159 points, the current strong openweight champion, Mr. No Days Off, Fred Rosser. Coming in second place with 194 points, the former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, Switchblade Jay White. And then coming in first place with 270 points, Filthy Tom Lawler.
I mean, it's like there's a lot of guys that were on this list that did a lot of great things, not just on the Strong brand, but also for the New Japan branded US pay-per-views. I mean, you had all the Lion and development guys that have kind of come out of that dojo, Clark Connors and Ren Narita, who've had fantastic years. Jonah with his undefeated streak, and he became this like unbeatable monster. Then you kind of had like the foreign import, I shouldn't say foreign, but like the domestic imports, guys that are big names over in Japan that came over and lended their expertise, like Tomohiro Ishii or Minoru Suzuki. And then, of course, you had Aussie Open sort of making their bones in New Japan of America. And the voting was very, very tight here just across the board with everybody. So this one's always very interesting. But when it comes down to these three guys that were the finalists, essentially Fred Rosser was sort of like the champion and the main guy. And I feel like in the early part of the year, his quest for the title is what really fueled a lot of the support for the voting here. And that's probably why he got, the recognition. And I feel like had he carried that momentum past his title win into meaningful matches and title defenses and programs, it would have been a slam dunk that he won here. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to do that. He was kind of overshadowed by Jay White and Tom Lawler. I think Jay White sort of really made a name for himself in the first half of the year with the USFJ Open Challenge. And
right.
Headlining all these strong events and facing all these AEW talents. But unfortunately, he was gone in the second half of the year, and that sort of dwindled. The one constant that was here all year was Tom Lawler. And for my money, we don't know what's going to happen with the Strong brand going forward, but there's literally no name to me that is more synonymous, maybe other than like Rocky Romero, but that's for different reasons. But when it comes to like being the face of this promotion and being like the standard bearer and the guy that entertains and is most recognizable, it's got to be Filthy Tom Lawler. The feud with Fred Rosser plays a huge part into it, but not just that, he had other title defenses that were really fantastic, and every single feud that he was in really like meant something, including like the Clark Connors feud. And then even after dropping the title, he was doing cool and unique, interesting things with like Homicide and Tomohiro Ishii and different individuals, and kind of just kept his profile high. And then, was able to parlay the success that he had in New Japan of America into being able to compete in the G1, which I'm sure probably helped. It almost felt like he was there representing New Japan Strong as opposed to being like a full-fledged member of New Japan,
Right, yeah.
And I feel like that's probably a lot of the reason why he got the win here. And I mean, let's not understate how big this is. He beat out Jay White, Will Ospreay, Tomohiro Ishii, and Minoru Suzuki as the most valuable player for New Japan of America. That's huge.
Yeah, and again, the voting was really fun to watch on this one because, again, in the early weeks of the voting, Tom and Jay White were very neck and neck with the first place votes. But then that second wave of voters, the last minute voters came in and really showed some love to Filthy Tom. And he ran away there with the first place points there. So, yeah, big ups.
I think this is his back-to-back win, too.
Yeah. Last year, he also won the New Japan of America MVP. So, yeah, Tom just did great work on the brand with that great long title run, several great defenses. Got over in Japan this year in the G1. That filthy clap, that got really over. And so, yeah, so shout out to Filthy Tom Lawler.
Great. So next up, we have the newcomer of the year. And coming in third place with 270 points, we have Jonah. Coming in second place with 297 points, we have Francesco Akira. And then in first place, 484 points, so quite a bit. Your winners for the newcomer of the year, the tag team of Aussie Open, Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis.
Yeah, so once again, we're seeing United Empire dominance in another category here with, 4 of their members here placing. So obviously with Francisco Akira made his New Japan debut this year in Best of the Super Juniors. Had a really good Super Juniors tournament, and then forming the Catch 2-2 team with TJP, and we talked about all the great defenses they had there. And then Aussie Open came in, finally made their Japan debut. Like you mentioned earlier, they were the first strong openweight tag team champions, had some good defenses, did some stuff on Impact with those titles, eventually dropped the belts to Motor City Machine Guns, and then had the incredible Match of the Year contender with FTR at Royal Quest 2. So yeah, like we talked about earlier, these guys came in and really did a lot in the time that they came in the grading period here, and between New Japan of America and what they did in Japan towards the end of the grading period, they had a really strong year.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to that. We've kind of sang their praises earlier, but the one thing I will just say is this is not a tag team company, and for a tag team to come in and win Newcomer of the Year in such a short amount of time, it really speaks volumes. So
yeah, and then Jonah coming in third place there. He was undefeated all year on New Japan Strong. Then he came into the G1, had a fun G1, beat Okada. Then he had the rematch with Okada that was really good as well. And so, he got over really big in Japan, made a lot with what he had in Japan, and then on New Japan Strong. So definitely good work there by Jonah. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's some guys here that are really fantastic additions that maybe didn't get the love. And I mean, this is not an indictment on the voters. I mean, you can only cast so many votes. But I think moving forward, we're going to see where some of these guys start to shine, like Shane Haste and Yuto Nakashima and Badu Tito. I think all three of those guys who didn't get a lot of love when it comes to the voting here as the years progress, we're already with the post-match promos and the programs that they're getting involved in. We're starting to see a lot more of their work and personality shine through. And we're going to look back and be grateful to have those guys added to the company.
Yeah. So up next, we got the Fighting Spirit Award. So this award is an award that we give to, something that represents fighting spirit. And that could be a number of different things. That could be somebody who had, a really great title reign, great title performance, somebody who came back from injury, somebody who, is coming out of retirement, somebody who is retiring. So there's a lot of different things that this Fighting Spirit Award can represent. So coming in third place with 183 points, we had Sabre with Zaki 2 Cups. So winning his second New Japan Cup in his run with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Coming in second place at 192 points, Tama gets revenge on Jay and wins the B block. So big moments there for Tama Tonga. And then coming in first place with 248 points, Gabe Kidd returned from mental health struggles. So that was pretty well documented throughout this year. Gabe Kidd, he was having a really great year, having a lot of really great matches in Rev Pro and in New Japan, and then had on a step away due to some mental health struggles. But then he came back. Had some good matches, got to be in the World Tag League, which I know that counts part of next year's grading period, but he came back, had some good matches there, and has come back and is doing really well right now.
This is an award category that I love because even if not everybody can win, just getting nominated probably indicates that you did something very meaningful. It's kind of like the good feel-good, moments and items that are on the docket for New Japan throughout the calendar year. But this one here with Gabe Kidd returning from mental health struggles to the company is something that's pretty special. I'm never sure what's going to win when it, like many of the other categories, like Wrestler of the Year, like Match of the Year, you have a pretty good indication. But when it comes to Fighting Spirit Award, this is what tells you what really resonated with the audience and what mattered to people, like what tugged on their heartstrings. And I'm not always good at kind of picking that out ahead of time and predicting it. But Gabe Kidd returning from mental health struggles, like you mentioned, Jeremy, it was something that was very much documented. We knew about it. And then there was a lot of concern once he initially came out and did that promo at New Japan Strong explaining what he went through during the pandemic era and everything like that. It was like, wow, people were very impressed with how openly and frank he was in discussing his struggles. But once that was over and we started to see him have all these incredible classic performances, there were a lot of things that were happening on social media and in interviews and, kind of erratic behavior. And people were getting very concerned. And hats off to the company. From all reports, they were very supportive and understanding and got him the help that was necessary. And so did a lot of his stablemates and co-workers in New Japan as well. And just different people across the industry. And this was an example of how sometimes the wrestling industry can come together and do good. But once all that was done, a lot of us were left wondering, like, is this it for Gabe Kidd? Is this kind of like a Keita Moore situation where, like, he had so much promise and then we don't know where he is, what's going to happen? And then to kind of see him rebound from that and get the help that was necessary and return to action. And it's something that really had, for me, it makes me respect him quite a bit as someone who I myself, struggle with mental health issues as well. It is something kind of inspiring. And I think it's something that also resonated a lot with the voters, and, people can't help but respect that. So one thing before I kick it over to you, after we got done with the awards and after voting was already live, like a few weeks into it, I was like, we probably should have thrown Shingo, the king of pro wrestling, on me.
Yeah.
So somehow we overlooked his run as the KOPW, the guy that kind of like revitalized KOPW. But, oh well.
Yeah, well, at least he won the Carl Gotch Strong Style of the Year award. So
I don't even know if he would have won, but it would have been interesting to see how that might have potentially affected the voting. But we forgot to nominate him.
Yeah. Oh, well, sorry, Shingo. You won the Strong Style of the Year award. But yeah, with Gabe Kidd, I think a lot of people, like you mentioned, really resonate with this and can relate to having mental health struggles. And so I think it was, probably really real and raw to a lot of people. And so they really related here. And that's how the voted reflected. So congrats to Gabe Kidd on the Fighting Spirit Award, and glad that you are back in New Japan and looking forward to see what you do this coming up year.
Cool. So congratulations, Gabe Kidd. Return from mental health struggles, Fighting Spirit Award 22. Next up, we have and we've renamed it under the demands of one Alex Coughlin, the cyborg, or the android, which you don't argue with an android. So the rebranded Young Lion of the Year Award 2022. And coming in third place, this was a tight vote with 321 points. We have Kosei Fujita. Coming in 332 points in second place, we have Ryohei Oiwa, and in first place with 361 points, your first place winner and the 2022 Young Lion of the Year, the Jet, Kevin Knight.
Yeah, I'm thinking, Kevin Knight probably got a lot of love here based off of what he did in the Super Junior Tag League and teaming with Kushida, which, that technically counts for next year's voting period. But Kevin Knight did have a really good year this year, mainly competing on New Japan Strong. Him and DKC, they won a lot of matches together as a tag team, as Young Lions, beating established teams. They got to a point where they were in a tag title match on pay-per-view. So that tag team was pushed very heavily this year on New Japan Strong. And just the way he wrestled compared this year to last year, like his game really tightened up there with the work in the LA dojo with Shibata. His wrestling game tightened up, and we saw him spread his wings literally with some of the way he jumped and his high flying in the ring. And so yeah, Kevin Knight did really solid work this past year.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I also think that even though Fujita and Oiwa debuted this year and were featured heavily in the domestic product, there's no denying that the popularity and visibility of the domestic product has been down a little bit this year. Whereas like Kevin Knight is somewhat of a known commodity already, having a bit of an indie career prior to signing with the LA Dojo, plus, the reputation that's sort of number one, just the fact that he is a black young boy, like that's something that's like stands out because we've never had an African American like young lion in any there's hardly any sort of like wrestlers of color in New Japan to begin with.
Right.
So the idea that like there is a young lion that's African American is something that really does stand out. And I'm not saying that that's why he won it, but I am saying that it is something that's noticeable. And then once you see him work in the ring, whether it was at the beginning of the year or all the way into the tag league, he is someone that is just incredibly gifted when it comes to the in-ring work, where even if, like, let's say hypothetically, you're watching all the domestic shows and you're seeing Oiwa and Fujita regularly, I think that they're both very impressive, and I like those guys a lot. But if you see Kevin Knight one time, like let's say you're watching Oiwa and Fujita all year, but you see Kevin Knight just one time, he stands out for whatever reason. He's got like the it factor and something that is like sort of memorable and kind of sticks with you. Whereas I'm not sure that Fujita and Oiwa are at a point where when they're wrestling, even though they have all the fundamentals and they have fire, and I think they've got a huge upside, they don't have that thing where like when you see like Kevin Knight, you're like, damn, this guy's going to be a star.
Yeah,
they just don't have that right now.
Yeah, he has that charisma. He has that cool factor. Like you see him, he looks like a star now that he has like he's graduated and has like the orange get up. Like he looks super cool. Looks like a star. Like a ton of charisma. His promos are fun. Like he's going to be a big star in professional wrestling.
And this is a year where, aside from those three guys, you got Yuto Nakashima and DKC. So it's a fairly new, relatively speaking, field of young lions. Whereas in the past, you had a lot of established guys sort of overlapping at different periods. So you had a wider field of people to vote from as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because like what we've been seeing in the shift, previously, young lions kind of stayed in that program for a lot longer. So like you're mentioning, you had years where like maybe Uemura would be on there twice or Tsuji would be on there twice. Well, now it's going to be interesting to see with them trying to speed up the process of young lions and graduation. Like which of these guys, well, Kevin Knight's not going to be on here next year. And so it's going to be interesting to see like with this remaining few that we have here, who's going to be on here and then how many new young lions are we going to get?
Like hypothetically, if Uemura and Tsuji had, God forbid, had to stay in the domestic product for whatever reason, we might not be getting a vote for Kevin Knight or, the other two younger lions. But because they kind of cleared out the guys that were senior to them, like the senpais, and sort of sent them off on excursion, it sort of opened the field for these younger guys to be more visible and get those votes. So Kevin Knight, very impressive. And like you also said, Jeremy, I think that also the run that he had during the World Tag League probably was another big reason why people voted, even though it's not technically part of our voting period. I don't know how rigidly the voters actually abide by that, especially when it's 2022 and that tour is taking place in 2022. I'm sure a lot of people are like, damn, he got like an orange jumpsuit. He's got a cool gimmick. Like this is the man right here.
Yeah.
Fuck you for Fujita.
So next up, we'll look at the Strong Style Fight of the Year. So of course, this is awarded to the match that was the hardest hitting. That match that felt like a fight, that gritty, knock him down, bloody, just hard hitting matchup that like we said, it feels like a fight. So coming in at third place with 145 points, Shingo Takagi versus Tomohiro Ishii from the New Japan Cup. Coming in second place with 163 points, Shingo Takagi versus Zack Sabre Jr. from the New Japan Cup. And then coming in first place with 221 points. Tomohiro Ishii versus Ren Narita from Battle Autumn.
I mean, we gave a pretty in-depth review after Battle Autumn when this match took place, and it was just getting rave reviews at the time, and I sort of had a feeling based on the reception it was receiving that this was probably going to be a likely candidate for the fight of the year, and to nobody's surprise, it was awarded that. And I think a lot of it just has to do with aside from the quality in-ring action, because the match itself was fantastic, but there's also, this was like the first major return bout for Ren Narita coming back from excursion to the domestic product. And then there's the allusions to the famous battles between Shibata and Ishii. And of course, it's Ishii and it's Narita, and those two guys are maniacs, and they went out there and suplexed the shit out of each other and kicked and elbowed and struck and chopped and did everything imaginable in one of these hard-hitting strong style fights. And even though we have seen a lot of those over the pandemic era, it's felt like, for whatever reason, as the latter half of this year's kind of come to place, we've seen a lot more viewers returning to the product, especially with like this New Japan World Television Title Tournament taking place, and that being made more accessible on YouTube and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, I think that helped also with people gaining visibility for this match and being like, oh, Narita's back. Oh, he's having a banger with Ishii. Oh, it's for free. Let me check this out. So I felt like this was part of some of that groundswell of people being like, New Japan is back. This was part of that movement, and the match delivered. So I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, the match was awesome. I loved that matchup, and yeah, it was very hard hitting. It was the exact definition of what a strong style fight of the year looks like. People really, like you mentioned, with it being free, it got shared all over the place and got a ton of views. Very interesting. Some other matches here that did pretty well in the voting. Eddie Kingston and Ishii from Capital Collision got 133 points. Tanahashi versus Kenta from Wrestle Kingdom 16 got 135. And I think that was one we were kind of questionable about because when you look at that match compared to maybe some of these other matches, it's not that kind of back and forth, never style, strong style fight. But they did
a different style of violence.
Yeah, they did a lot of crazy stuff. And I mean, Kenta was pretty much out half the year after what happened in that match. And then Eddie Kingston versus Gabe Kidd from the Nemesis Tour got 113 points. And that match, super hard hitting. If you have not watched Eddie Kingston versus Gabe Kidd, you need to go back and watch that matchup, because that matchup was just super awesome there towards the beginning of the grading period. So a lot of really good fights here to pick from.
Yeah, I mean, I love the strong style fight of the year because it's us, again, highlighting violence. And so not every single one of these matches is going to get consideration for something like, say, match of the year. But it's not going to be nominated for any other reason other than the fact that these matches are really hard hitting and they're very violent. So I almost love that you can use these awards and the nominees as sort of like a guide. So if you haven't checked any of these matches out, I'd highly recommend you go back. Like, to me, I voted Kingston Gabe Kidd as my strong style fight of the year, but being on Strong, I just don't think it had enough traction or visibility to sort of get that recognition. But there's a lot of other sleepers here. Desperado and John Moxley, the death match was fantastic. Some of the Kenta and Zack Sabre from the G1 is got to be up there as well.
Yeah, Kenta was slapping the crap out of Zack in that match.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of really great stuff here. Kingston and Ishii, Suzuki Ishii. So, but Ishii and Ren Narita really struck a chord with a lot of people. So that's your fight of the year.
Yeah.
So next up, we have the junior match of the year, and a lot of great candidates. Our top three. In third place with 215 points, we have the best of the Super Junior 28 match between El Desperado and Hiromu Takahashi. Coming in second place, we have best of the Super Junior 29 finals between El Desperado and Hiromu Takahashi. And then in first place with 297 points, your winner for junior match of the year, El Phantasmo versus Robbie Eagles, Best of the Super Juniors 29.
Man, what a great set of winners right there. But yeah, ELP, Robbie Eagles from Best Super Juniors this past year in Cork and Hall was just absolutely incredible. Like, that was a match that a lot of people are even considering like for their match of the year. I feel like in Super Juniors the last couple of years, there always seems to be like that one match I feel like kind of stands out and really grabs people's attention. And this year it was Eagles and ELP. And, you know, a lot of people I think were really tuned into the tournament this year because you had a lot of new competitors. You had a lot of people coming in from you had Wheeler Utah coming in from AEW. You had Lindemann, you had Chris Bay, you had all these people coming in. And so there were a lot of eyes on the tournament this year. And then when people saw what Phantasmo and Eagles did, it really blew them away. And, you know, obviously these guys really hadn't been in a rivalry this past year, but the backstory is there with, you know, Eagles being a part of Bullet Club and then getting leaving Bullet Club and being replaced by ELP. And so the whole back history there really kind of added, if you were following them and following that rivalry, I think it added to this match as well. I think it was just a really big moment for both of these guys, and they absolutely killed it.
You know, we had kind of joked going into this year's grading period that it was going to be the year of the junior, because we not only had last year's December Super Junior tournament included in the grading period, but we also had the return to the more traditional date of May/June for Best of the Super Junior. So we had 2 Super Junior tournaments in this grading period, and it's really saying a lot that ELP versus Eagles was not just the best junior match of the year, but it was also the best junior match amongst all of the Best of the Super Junior matches in 2 consecutive years.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge high honor. It's almost maybe in some ways higher than some of the other years that we've had the junior match of the year for, you know, our awards. So for me, this was an easy 5-star classic, and I don't say it lightly. I think I'm a little bit more judicious with my grading than Jeremy in most cases. I'm a little bit more
you're more of a stickler.
Yeah, I'm more of a stickler a little bit. So, and we were both blown away by this match with every good reason to be. And I felt like this, for both of these guys, it was their finest hour in 2022. And yeah, if you haven't seen Phantasmo versus Robbie Eagles, you owe it to yourself to go out of your way and see it. I mean, the only other match I've seen with ELP that I think might be as good or better is the match with I love the match with him and Rocky Romero.
From 2019. Yeah,
it's really great. But this one might have trumped it a little bit. So
yeah, and then here, you know, we were talking about Desperado and his year. Yeah, he was on here a lot with a lot of, you know, high point totals. So, you know, getting the second and third place matchups with Hiromu, Despi did from, you know, the 29 finals this year, and then from the Best of Juniors 28 last year. Also, he had the matches with Lindemann from this year that had 103 points. Let's see, did he have any other match? The Robbie Eagles match from this year had 77 points. So yeah, Desperado had a really good year between both Super Juniors.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that match with him and Lindemann from Super Juniors 29. I wish it would have done a little bit better, but that's okay. I mean, it's kind of hard to top those 2 Hiromu matches that those 2 had together in both tournaments. So, but yeah, that's going to be it. That's going to do it for Junior Match of the Year.
So next up, Tag Team Match of the Year. So coming in third place with 122 points, Desperado and Wato versus Hiromu and Ishimori from Battle Autumn. So that was the incredible tag match. That was the build up to the 4-way. Then in second place with 127 points from Forbidden Door, Minoru Suzuki, Chris Jericho, and Sammy Guevara versus Eddie Kingston, Shota Umino, and Wheeler Utah. And then coming in first place with 500 points, FTR versus Aussie Open from Royal Quest 2.
Yeah, FTR, you know, for any kind of criticisms that we may have lobbied their way at any point in time, namely Dax Harwood, you can't put aside the fact that they are absolutely, unmistakably one of the greatest tag teams, not just today, but probably of all time. And for my money, Aussie Open is one of the only other teams, wrestling today that I think holds a candle to them or might even be on the same level as them. And there was a lot of hype and a lot of anticipation for this match. And this was one where we waited all those weeks for it to make tape. I feel like if it had made tape when it first happened, it might have even had more notoriety than it ended up having, because it wasn't as viewable or accessible as some of the FTR matches in AEW or the ROH matches with the Briscoes. But make no mistake about it, this was every bit as good as anything else that FTR did throughout the calendar year. And Aussie Open had that Velocities match that might even be better than this one.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. But this match was it blew everybody that watched it away. And I mean, the voting was unmistakable. 432 first place points, 500 overall. I mean, they kind of just mopped the competition. This was a heavy landslide. And I don't think since we've started doing Tag Team of the Year, we've had an overwhelming favorite like this. So it goes to show you just how well received and loved this match was.
Yeah, some very interesting matchups because none of these were really your traditional style matchups. They weren't your straight up normally tag team kind of stuff. I mean, nothing was really. I mean, you had the Aussie Open match that was in Royal Quest, and then you had the Forbidden Door match, which was a 6-man tag, which shows you how much people love that matchup. And then the random, incredible tag match with Despy and Wanta versus Hiromu and Ishimori. You wouldn't get a match like that each year. And so kind of three unique matchups here for different reasons.
Yeah, and I feel like some of the other stuff too that was listed on the Tag Team Match of the Year was kind of in that same way. It was sort of there's a lot of unique tag team matches, like the anniversary event where you had the generational match with Tanahashi, Okada, and Fujinami versus Suzuki and Fujiwara and Zack Sabre. It didn't get a lot of love, but that was definitely one that was really great. And it's not your traditional New Japan style tag team match, or even Kongo versus LIJ, or Tanahashi and Okada versus Kiyomiya and Muto from Wrestle Kingdom Day 3, the Noah crossover show. So there seemed to be a lot of sort of unique tag team matches like the one from Forbidden Door. And there was a lot of crossover with New Japan and other groups throughout the year as well. And we were pretty close to including a couple of those historic crossover mixed tags as well. They just barely missed the cut. So
yeah, I think this category is going to be a lot of fun for this coming up year, just based off of the stuff Catch 22's doing, Aussie Open, Bishamon. I feel like this category is going to be really strong this calendar year.
Yeah, definitely. But there you have it. Not that it was in any doubt. FTR versus Aussie Open. Hopefully we get a rematch this year, whether it's here or, somewhere else.
Yeah, FTR seems to be kind of up in flux of what their future looks like. And they just dropped all their titles. There's rumors that their contract is up in the spring and they might be leaving AEW. So we'll see what happens. Who knows?
Vince is back, so.
Right.
But next up, we have the Excursion Match of the Year, one of my favorite categories. And we had literally nothing but incredible nominees this year. But your top three, in third place with 183 points, we have the Elite versus the United Empire from AEW on August 31st. In second place with 202 points, we have the United Empire versus Death Triangle from AEW Dynamite August 24th. And then your winner with 251 points overall, the death match between El Desperado and Jun Kasai from Despy Taka Taichi Mania Just Tap Out, September 12th. That is your winner, Desperado versus Jun Kasai.
Yeah, that matchup just got a ton of buzz online from the GIFs and videos that New Japan was setting out, and just how bloody and wild and crazy, that matchup. There's so many great pictures of these guys all bloody, all tore up from that death match. And that match really, I think, elevated El Desperado in the eyes of a lot of fans this year. It was just an absolutely nuts, like pretty much every spot they did in that match, I was like, oh, ow, like, why are you doing this? Oh my gosh. Like, it was such a crazy matchup here. And I think with everything else, it's kind of like we were talking about on the previous show with Will Ospreay. I'm sure a ton of votes got split between all his matchups. I mean, you had to choose between Ospreay and Oku, the Elite versus United Empire versus Death Triangle, Ospreay versus Ricky Knight Jr., Ospreay versus Speedball Mike Bailey. So Ospreay, again, just had so many incredible matchups. You had to choose between all of those. And so it seems like he some votes got split, but the top two for Ospreay were the match against Death Triangle from the Trios tournament from August 24th, and then the matchup with the Elite, also from the Trios tournament in August 31st. But I mean, I don't think you could have gone wrong with any of Ospreay's choices, but those Trios matches were probably the most widely viewed, easy accessible, and they were just absolutely awesome matchups.
Yeah, and I mean, like we said at the beginning for this category, everything that was on here was top-notch. Doki and Taichi was maybe one of the most emotional matches I watched all year. Akira versus Kid was like the coming out party for both guys that we didn't know, and really set the stage for both of them in 2022. Moxley and Lawler was a bloody, wild, crazy match in Defy. And if it had happened on, like, say, AEW, probably would have done much better in the standings. But, the visibility, a lot of people didn't know about it. Doki, Desperado, and Jun Kasai and Hanma, that probably would have done better had Desperado and Jun Kasai not taken place later in the year. I feel like the Despi Jun Kasai match kind of overtook the other Just Tap Out matches on this list as being like the favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Aussie Open and Velocities is another one where it's like, I don't know if more people would have seen that as well as Ospreay and Oku. I don't know if they don't win. You know what I mean? Like, that's how good they are.
And Ospreay and Oku did pretty decent there. Got 180 points, just 3 points short of coming in third place.
Yeah, it's a Dave Meltzer 5-star rated match, and it didn't win.
It's crazy.
I mean, it kind of is, kind of not. It's not like we put all of our stock in what Dave's opinions are, but I mean, it's a barometer and it's a good gauge and tool, and it's like, it's one of the greatest matches he's ever seen, and it didn't win. But I guess we should throw some roses at Desperado and Jun Kasai. That match not only got a lot of buzz, but like, it had years and years of build and buzz leading into it. And those guys did some of the craziest shit that I've ever seen in a wrestling match.
Yeah, it was so wild. And then also, too, they drew a great crowd. I think that's probably one of the best, drawing Takataichi shows they've done.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And make no mistakes about it. It's not like there hasn't been crazier things that happen in wrestling. I mean, in Freedoms and Big Japan and GCW and yada yada and CZW, the list goes on and on. I'm sure there's been wilder things that have happened, but these guys told a long form story. They crescendoed it and paid it off here. And there was so much investment. It wasn't just violence for the sake of violence, but there was a reason behind everything that was happening. And it was beautiful. It was crazy. The post match was also incredible. And like we said during the preview to these awards, is it's not always, when it comes to excursion match, it's not just the best match that happened outside of New Japan, but it's generally the best match that had the most platform, the most eyes, and resonated the most. And so that's what happened here with this one. Even if hypothetically you voted for something else that you thought was better, this is the thing that kind of captured the public's imagination. So
yeah, I think really, big shout out to them too, because it's a JTO show. Like, if you want to watch this legally, you had to pay extra pay-per-view price on New Japan World, and that beat out, 2 AEW matches that are, free on TV. If you have cable, you can watch that easily, or Sling or whatever. And so they surpassed those matchups.
Well, another thing too, I know you mentioned Ospreay splitting votes, but I mean, United Empire in trios matches a week apart definitely split their votes.
Yeah.
hypothetically, like let's say if there was no tournament and one of those matches just happened to take place in, like, let's just say it was Elite versus United Empire because of the cachet of it being Kenny and Will on opposite ends, plus, the Aussie Open versus, Young Bucks sort of thing as well. And it was for the title and there was no tournament and it just happened on free TV. And then there was no other title tournament matches to kind of distract from it. It probably could have won this award very easily, but because these happened a week apart from each other, and you had people like me who thought the Death Triangle United Empire match was even better, and both of them were all-time classics, it was tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now they've got a best of 7 series going, and people are like trying to argue which is the best of those 7, and like that's completely apart from the inaugural tournament that took place. That was blowing our mind. That was part of these awards. It's crazy shit. Like, yeah. And Kenny wrestled Will Ospreay in one of the greatest matches in the history of wrestling in the Tokyo Dome in between,
after that wild matches. Falls count anywhere match. He's about to have a ladder match this Wednesday.
It's so crazy. Oh man,
we're spoiled with great wrestling. Oh, man. But yeah, congrats to Despy and Jun Gasai, the Excursion Match of the Year. So that will take us now. We have 2 more categories here left. So our second to last category is the Angle of the Year. So, the best angle that happened in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So coming in third place with 220 points, Shibata calling an audible at Wrestle Kingdom 16. So, that was a matchup with Ren Narita that was supposed to be under UWFI rules, kind of a catch exhibition matchup. And then Shibata, called audible and said, we're going to have a regular matchup. And he started kicking Narita in the head.
Was he shooting or was he working, brother?
We'll never know. Then second place, 226 points. Tama becomes a real good guy and aligns with Hantai. So this was kind of one of the peak moments in the feud between Bullet Club and GOD, where Tama becomes a good guy. He puts on the Hantai Lion Mark t-shirt and fully embraces the good side. And then coming in first place with 289 points, Kenny Omega challenges Will Ospreay, and this snuck in right towards the end of the grading period at a historic crossover. And I mean, we saw what this angle produced just a few days ago at Wrestle Kingdom 17, but man, it was such a, there had been a lot of rumors about Kenny and Will facing off, and we saw what happened in the Trios tournament. But then, the whole Brawl Out thing happened. I think there's a lot of question of whether or not this Ospreay Omega match was going to happen. And then Ospreay beats Umino. The lights go out. We get the video from Kenny Omega. And, it was the hottest angle of the year that built to the hottest match of this year. So, I mean, it's just a great moment. The crowd oohing, awing, big just elation across the wrestling world for Kenny Omega being back in New Japan and challenging Will Ospreay.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool. Fuck all that. Go and do yourself a favor and watch Fred Rosser versus West Coast Wrecking Crew. That was my true. When was that? Was that in May or like June?
I think it was in May, I believe. Or might have been end of April.
So it happened in April, but it was actually aired. Let me see here. May 3rd. Oh yeah, just before my birthday, May 13th, 2022. Do yourself a favor, even if you don't watch the West Coast Wrecking Crew versus Fred Rosser match, watch the post-match angle. There were 18 points. So you get, what's 18 divided by 3? I don't know.
6.
6? Mm-hmm. Okay. 6 smart individuals that voted Lawler versus Rosser to shave his own head as the angle of the year. And you folks were correct. The rest of y'all that voted for Kenny Omega, I'm gonna give you one of these. You can't see what I'm doing, but I'm doing the thing they do in the Italian movies. No, I'm just playing. But Kenny Omega versus challenges Will Ospreay. That was a moment that everyone's always going to remember. The visual of like Kenny showing up on the screen and Will, hanging on the ropes and his back to, he's facing the screen and they got that shot with his back and it's really epic, and it, echoes the sentiments of what happened all those years ago when Chris Jericho showed up after a U.S. title defense from Kenny Omega versus, I think, Trent Beretta. And it was just very similar. And not just the audacity of Kenny to show up on the screen and challenge him, but the level of promo that he cut in Japanese and all the hype and anticipation that sort of followed it. I mean, it was something that really led to not just a legendary match, but also a huge boost in business. I mean, we saw the increase in, people getting New Japan World. It's not all them, but it was a huge boost to the business, especially on the Western side of the hemisphere, and all the hype and anticipation that came from this angle. So I'm not surprised that it was the angle of the year. There was some other really great stuff here, but nothing really seemed to elevate New Japan's status in the minds and imaginations of the Western audience more than the idea of Kenny Omega returning to take on, the new best bout machine in Will Ospreay. Is really great stuff.
Yeah, and I will second you on the Lawler angle. I mean, that was just a really just kind of great old school angle, making this man shave his own head and pretty much beg for a title match.
No, remember what it was? They said he had to shave his head, and they started to shave his head, and he grabbed the clippers from them and started shaving his own head. And he's like, "Can I have a match now?
Yeah."
Can I have a match now? And he's like, and he like fucked up, and he was like bleeding because like he did it too hard.
Yeah.
And then
Tom was like, "No."
Yeah, and Tom Lawler starts eating his hair. It's disgusting. And then he's like, "No." It's really great if you haven't seen it, but all this stuff was great. It is funny. Shibata shows up on here twice, and he did really good in the point standings in both cases. Like, I love Shibata as much as the next guy, but like, we've had him win this award many times, and every time he comes out, like, people fawn over themselves regardless. Like, he's got that connection with the audience.
Yeah. And I must say, it does feel good again to have Kenny Omega winning a year-end award on this show.
Why does it feel good? He's paying you money?
No, it's just good, have Kenny back. And this year, he's going to win Match of the Year.
He's on Dynamite all the time. You have him.
He's going to win, Gaijin of the Year.
He's probably not going to qualify for these awards, bro.
I don't know. Well, he's definitely Match of the Year. He's going to qualify for that, but
he might. He'll qualify for Match of the Year. But other than that,
Wrestler of the Year,
Newcomer of the Year,
Excursion Match. He qualifies now.
He's not going to have to be on the Excursion Match of the Year. FTR didn't even make it into Tag Team of the Year. There's no way we're putting Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega's got to like stick around and like work a prolonged schedule. Like,
we'll see. He's already got Jeff Cobb on his tails.
Oh my God! All right, so let's jump into the final category for these awards: the news story of the year. A lot of big news stories, a lot of controversial things that occurred this year, but the top 3 news stories as voted by you, the listener. In third place, 242 points, Kota Ibushi's contract status controversy. Coming in second place with 305 points, AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling's Forbidden Door pay-per-view. And then coming in first place with 362 points, the passing of Antonio Inoki, the founder of New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, and I mean, that was definitely a story that kind of shocked the whole wrestling world. I mean, you saw so many people kind of coming out and talking about Inoki after his passing. I mean, it was such a story. I mean, also, he wasn't, a current office member or really a part of New Japan, but Towards the end, right before he passed away, he was going to be announced as, the legacy chairman of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and also, creating New Japan Pro Wrestling. So much of New Japan ties back to Inoki, and if you haven't yet, go back and listen to our tribute episode that we did here on this show after he passed on this feed. That when we look back on his career, which couldn't even really fully do in the 3 hours we had. Just the legacy that Inoki leaves is just so great. Without him, we wouldn't be doing the show right now. So definitely the number one news story of his passing.
Yeah, like you mentioned, we did a tribute episode earlier this year. We had both Justin Nipper as well as what's wrong with Mike Sempervive on the show. And I have to say that as saddened as I was by the news of the passing of Antonio Inoki, it was really fantastic getting an opportunity to pay tribute and relive some of the memories of Antonio Inoki, who is in fact one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. And I do feel like the work we did on that episode is probably amongst the best work we've ever done on this podcast and some of the things that I'm most proud of. So if you have never listened to that episode, I would highly recommend you go back and give that a listen when you get a chance. But it is no surprise that that was the news story of the year. One of the 2 or 3 most pivotal and fundamental and foundational personalities in all of the last half decade of wrestling, Antonio Inoki passes away. And it's hard to, no matter how big of a news story, it's sort of hard to be a bigger news story than that. And all the ties that he has, for better or for worse, Antonio Inoki, is the foundation and the fundamental basis of New Japan Pro Wrestling and everything that stands for. So,
yeah, and then Forbidden Door, we saw what a big deal that was for that to finally happen. We know the story of the history between AEW and New Japan not working together, and then Harold May getting out of there, then Obari comes in, and now they're working with AEW, and we just how quickly that relationship really blossomed this year, and then just the announcement. In some ways. With the announcing of this pay-per-view, and then the pay-per-view actually happening, even though it was kind of snake-bitten with some injuries and COVID and travel delays and stuff like that, ended up being an incredible pay-per-view, show of the year, one of the show of the year here on this award show. So yeah, a big moment there. And then Bushi's contract status. That's something we've been talking about literally all year with Ibushi and all the tweets and, mentioning about Yakuza and the stuff that happened with his mom, and then, New Japan saying he's coming back and then he's fine. And it's the whole story, the whole back and forth, whether or not he's coming back. And we still don't know whether or not he's coming back, because they were talking to him during that Inoki tribute show with Lawler vs. Shibata.
It's a he said, The only other news story that wasn't in the top 3 that got a lot of votes was Stardom's historic crossover pay-per-view, as well as the inaugural IWGP Women's title introduced. Coming off Wrestle Kingdom, it's hard to know how important that title is going to be. But then again, with the introduction of Mercedes Moné,
Moné.
Man, fuck all that. Sasha Banks. Maybe they're going to push it a little bit more, but the idea that there will be more crossover between Stardom and New Japan is very exciting and something that resonated with a lot of people as well in the vote. So that's it. That's going to do it for the awards this year.
Yeah. So once again, thank everybody who participated in the awards this year and voted. Thanks for making it a great awards. We'll be sharing out the award graphics on our Twitter account at KI Strong Style. Make sure you share those and like those as well. So,
shout out to Jeremy. He designed the new templates that we will be using this year for the award templates to let the wrestlers know that they have won.
Thanks, man.
These awards.
The world is always on, but you shouldn't be. Put junk sleep to bed. During Mattress Firm's New Bed, New You sale, save up to 50% with Sealy Queen mattresses starting at $349.99. Only at Mattress Firm. Restrictions apply. See store or mattressfirm.com for details.
When it's time for an adventure on the open highway, one quick call to American Family Insurance gets you headed in the right direction. Our Travel Peace of Mind package is there if you encounter a bump in the road. From roadside assistance to rental car coverage, we have you covered. Find a local agent or get a quote at amfam.com.
American Family Insurance.
American Family Mutual Insurance Company, SI, and its operating company, 6000 American Parkway, Madison, Wisconsin.
There's a recipe for getting your car running just right. And whatever you're cooking up in the garage, you'll find what you need at ebaymotors.com. They have over 122 million car parts and accessories in stock, all at the right prices. And that can help you turn your ride into something really tasty. The parts you need are just a click away at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
All right, let's talk about some Wrestle Kingdom 17 Fallout stuff that's been coming up and some other bigger news stories. So first thing, New Japan announced last Thursday night that Wrestle Kingdom 17 pulled in record numbers for their NJPW World streaming service. So the company stated that 92,409 unique worldwide users watched the show last Wednesday, with 30% of the viewership, nearly 28,000, coming from outside of the country and watching the English feed. And they say that the overall number is a record for the service, which has been in operation since 2014.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it's my understanding that 92,000 unique worldwide users was live. They're just talking about live viewers.
Right, just live, not people like, for example, you who woke up and watched it. Like,
whoa. I don't like the tone of the way you say you people.
You people.
What do you mean by you people?
That woke up at 9 a.m., 10 a.m., didn't get up like the rest of us at 3 a.m. The real.
I don't like the way you say us. What do you mean by us, Jeremy?
But yeah, for people who woke up and watched it later, next day or whatever, that wasn't counted in this 92,000. This 92,000 was just people who are watching live. So yeah, definitely more than that overall watch the show.
Yeah, I mean, that's very impressive, just considering how big some of these Wrestle Kingdom events have been in the past. And, you know, how this company's sort of been on a downturn due to a plethora of reasons, namely the pandemic and everything that was entailed with that. And you really have to point to, for at least for the Western audience, two big things. I think it really comes down to Omega Ospreay and the, you know, anticipated introduction of Mercedes Moné.
Yeah, definitely two big moments there, and brought in a lot of eyes from the Western audience. So yeah, great stuff there. Then also we got the full card revealed for the NJPW versus Noah Wrestle Kingdom 17 show that will be happening January 21st in Yokohama Arena. And so the major theme for this show is going to be LIJ versus Congo, which we saw the angle that happened at Wrestle Kingdom 17 in Tokyo Dome. And then there was also a press conference that happened that announced these matchups. So the main event is going to be Tetsuya Naito versus Kano. So leader versus leader there. Then we'll have Shingo Takagi versus Katsuhiko Nakajima. Sonata.
Should be leader versus should be leader.
Yeah.
In that situation.
Sonata versus Minobu Soya. Hiromu Takahashi versus Hajime Ohara. Bushi versus Tadasuke. Kazuchika Okada and Togi Makabe versus Kaito Kiyomiya and Yoshiki Inamura. Ryusuke Taguchi, Master Wato, and Tiger Vast versus Amakusa. I'm guessing how you say that. I'm not sure. Amakusa. Don't know these Noah names. Junta Makawaki and Alejandro Miyawaki. El Esperado versus Yohei. Hiroshi Tanahashi, Toru Yano, Satoshi Kojima, and Takashi Segura will take on Marufuji, Kenta, El Phantasmo, and Gato. Tomohiro Ishii and Oscar Lube will take on Masaki Tamida and Daiki Aniba. And then Kosei Fujita and Rei Oyo will take on Yatsutaka Yano and Taichi Ozawa.
So I think those last two matches you mentioned are just pre-show matches,
Mm-hmm.
and the 8-man tag between Tanahashi's team versus Marufuji's team is going to be essentially like the show opener.
Right. And we had a question here from at MCW111986. What are your thoughts on Wrestle Kingdom Night 2, LJ versus Congo? Do you see a 3-2 split for NJPW, 4-1, or even unlikely 5-0? Will the show have cheering?
That's a great question. I do want to say earlier today I got around to watching the press conference, which was essentially a press conference that mainly focused on the LIJ versus Congo feud. And obviously we're getting 5 singles matches between those two factions at the top of the card. So it's sort of like an elimination series almost, basically. I will say I was a little disappointed that there wasn't any sort of English translation. That's something I also complained about on the previous Wrestle Kingdom press conference episode that we did. But the nice thing, they did post and I have this on our Twitter if you want to check it out. There is a summary of what each individual person in the press conference said in order on the NJPW 1972 website under the news section. So you can use that and follow along with the approximately like 45-minute press conference to kind of get an idea of what's going on here and everything like that. And there was a few interesting things that were stated. We do have a special guest coming on next week, Justin Nipper, who does overseas PR for Noah, to kind of help us navigate some of the intricacies between these two groups. And that's going to be a really fun time, kind of shooting the shit with Justin, because we've had him on the show before. We like him a lot. But as far as the overall show goes, it is going to be interesting because it's not just LIJ versus Congo. It's also New Japan versus Noah. And so the question is, like, how are they going to split it across the board? Is it just going to be like is all the emphasis on Noah and New Japan? Is all the emphasis on LIJ and Congo? Are they going to split the difference? Maybe, hypothetically, maybe if you were to, and I'm not saying they're going to do this, maybe you give Congo the upper hand and you give them the win 3-2. That might be a kind of cool, unique thing to do to maybe fuel future business between the two groups down the road.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have like New Japan win most of the undercard matches. So at the end of the day, it's still like,
who really won?
Yeah, who really won? That might be like some carnyism sort of thing. But we've seen how New Japan, I mean, just look at the show they did last year. New Japan doesn't always work well with others when it comes to, domestic wrestling companies, especially the fact that Noah is is the largest company in the cyber agent group. And we've heard reports that they view cyber agent as a major threat. And that whole thing, I'm a little surprised that they're even doing a cross-promoted show to begin with.
Yeah, same here. I thought for sure that they weren't going to work with Noah again this year.
Yeah, me too. So I'm not sure what to expect here. I also, given the fact that I'm not the biggest Noah expert, I don't think Jeremy is either. It's hard for me to kind of give you accurate predictions. And it's one of the reasons we're having Justin come on next week. And that way he can geek out over the wrestlers that he likes. And we can tell him why he's wrong and why,
Shinny Hon.
Why Bushi's going to beat the brakes off to Tadasuke. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
So that should be a fun show still. We'll give our full kind of preview and predictions for that next week with Justin.
I don't know that the show is going to have cheering, though. I don't think they made an announcement on that.
Yeah, I know New Japan, they're trying to move forward with the Wrestle Kingdom 17 Tokyo Dome rules. So I guess depending maybe where that building is, where Yokohama Arena is, and how the government feels, there might be cheering for it. So we'll stay tuned. There hasn't been an official announcement, though.
I'll look at the schedule.
Okay. While you're doing that, we did get dates and venues announced for the New Japan Cup and the 51st anniversary show.
For what it's worth, it does not say cheering event, and most of the events that are cheering do specifically state it. So,
gotcha. So New Japan Cup tournament will kick off from Korakuen Hall on Sunday, March 5th, and will run until the finals on Tuesday, March 21st from Nagoya. And then the anniversary show will be happening Monday, March 6th from Ota Ward General Gymnasium. So a little weird there that the anniversary show is happening the day after the New Japan Cup starts. So I'm guessing that anniversary show is maybe going to be part of the New Japan Cup. But we have less events here this year. So I'm kind of curious to see how the field is going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of seen a little bit of overlap in the past, so I'm not that excited or that surprised by it. But you could be correct. They have had tournament matches during the anniversary event in the past out of necessity as well. So that's possible as well.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to look here on just kind of comparing the amount of events in a previous year.
This is less than like the last 3 years, the amount of nights for sure. But there's a lot of speculation. Does that mean that it's going to be a smaller field? I mean, it'll definitely probably be a smaller field than last year, which was the all-time high for participants in the tournament. But we've seen an expanded field over the past few years. And in the ancient past, it used to be just a 16-man tournament.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen speculation online that if they include enough tournament matches each night, they could still do hypothetically like a 32-man tournament if that's what they were aiming to do. We have seen recently that there's like an edict or a mandate from the company, and sort of we're seeing this in the verbiage and the language that they're using in their public posts, especially from Takami Obari, where they're talking about quality over quantity. So that might lend itself to the idea that they're going to have either less tournament matches or all tournament matches, but less than we've seen in the past few years. And that's what I'm guessing either way.
Yeah, so in 2016, there were 16 entrants, 3 events. 2017, there were 16 entrants, 8 events. In 2018, 16 entries, 9 events. 2019, 32 entrants with 12 events. In 2020, 32 entrants, 9 events. 21, 30 entrants with 14 events. And last year, we had 48 entries with 15 events. Though this year, we have 11 events. So it'll be interesting to see what number of entrants we'll get this year.
There is still a way you could do like a 32 or 30-man tournament and pretty much have the shows be nothing but tournament matches almost exclusively, which that would be
dope.
Quantity and quality, most likely.
Yeah.
But don't be surprised if they are going back to a 16-man format.
Yeah, which, I mean, I think I'd be fine with that.
I would be too.
So next thing here, WWE is interested in Tama Tonga and Hikuleo. So there's been rumors coming out that, WWE is interested in both these brothers here. New Japan sources are saying that Tama Tonga's NJPW contract is up in a matter of weeks. So some questions here from MCW 111986. Are the rumors of Tama WWE feasible or just speculation? What do you see as the future for Jay White? Hikuleo seems to be the one people believe is leaving, not him.
Well, several years ago when there was the great exodus, and we're talking about like 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
When there was the great exodus of Western talent to WWE from New Japan, most of their contracts were up around this time, I believe, based on some of the comments he's made in social media and on podcasts. Tama Tonga talked about how his contract was nearly up around the same time as Carl Anderson and those others back then. Now, I can't tell you that I know the ins and outs of Tama Tonga's contract status, but historically, this is around the same time that they do have contract negotiations. There's a reason why they call it contract season for New Japan talent. So is it feasible? It's absolutely feasible and probably highly likely that this report, especially considering that like the sources are like Sean Ross Sapp and others, and we haven't seen anyone refuting it, that these are probably likely truths. Now, I'm not saying that Tama Tonga or Hikuleo are going to leave necessarily, but we've seen stranger things happen. We've seen a lot of people jump, and we are in the middle of a wrestling war where people's worth, especially talent, is at an all-time high premium. And would I be surprised, hypothetically, if either Hikuleo or Tama Tonga or both decided to go work in WWE? Not at all. Again, things are changing day in and day out. And with the recent announcements of the, ongoing business with WWE and Vince McMahon and all the board shakeup and impending sale, I don't know. That might also impact someone's anticipation or desire to jump ship as well.
Right. We definitely know something's happening because Hikuleo versus Jay White is going to be loser leaves Japan. So one of those guys is leaving. And so I don't know if maybe they kind of leaked that story, maybe just speculate that, Hikuleo could be leaving too, just to add some more legitimacy to that match. So we kind of get off the scent that Jay's leaving, or maybe Hikuleo really is leaving and that's the way to kind of get him out of the company. So it could be either or kind of situation. Tama Tonga, I mean,
they could all leave.
that's true, yeah.
that's something that no one else is saying, but I thought to myself, what's stopping all of them from leaving? I mean, nothing stopped AJ and Gallows and Anderson and
Nakamura
Shinsuke from all leaving at the same time.
Right. And Finn Balor did post that Bullet Club picture today that you retweeted on our account, so maybe more speculation there. And we know
I didn't do that. I don't know who retweeted that. It wasn't me. That's probably you.
I guess we're getting hacked then.
I don't be tweeting shit.
And Tama, we know he's good friends with Carl Anderson. He could put in a good word for Triple H, while Triple H has power for right now, and can get Tama in. So.
Well, we know that they've had interest in Tama Tonga in the past and bringing him over. And like we mentioned in our awards, this is a guy that rose his stock quite a bit in this company. His in-ring work has never been better. His look has never been better. His character work has never been better. His promos at an all-time high. Why wouldn't they be interested in him? You know what I mean?
Right.
And Hikuleo's 6'8". He's a fucking giant.
Dude,
and their dad is Haku, the toughest man in the history of wrestling. And we're talking about someone who the old timers believe would beat up Danny Hodge and Harley Race on the same night. So
yeah, Vince would love Hikuleo. If Vince gets back in creative control, he's definitely bringing Hikuleo in.
Vince would love Hikuleo, and then Vince would fire Hikuleo, and then Vince would see Hikuleo again and forgot he ever fired him and want to hire him again. That's how much he is a Vince guy.
Why aren't we booking Hikuleo, pal? Vince, you fired him. Damn.
You fired him. Well, goddamn, bring him back.
Bring him back, pal.
Give him to Paul. Put him in NXT. Give him to Sean. We gotta do something with this kid. But yeah. So who knows what's going on there? Well, nobody knows.
Yeah. Next thing, NJPW Strong Nemesis kicked off.
I thought it was called Demesis, like the demise. I guess.
We had the kickoff of the Nemesis tour this past Saturday. So we had two matchups. First matchup, ELP and Jay White defeated the team of Allen Angels and Hikuleo, 847. So kind of saw the continuation of Jay White, Hikuleo there. And then we had the Strong.
I was confused because Jay White came out with the world title, but he lost it on January 4th at the Tokyo Dome. So I think that there might be a storyline that we are not aware of where he stole the belt away from Okada and took it to the United States, and the company's trying to keep it under wraps. Maybe Jay thinks that people in the States don't watch New Japan World, and he's trying to pass himself off as champion. Actually, you know what? Maybe he didn't even steal it. Maybe he went to Belts by Dan and bought a replica like he was Will Ospreay.
Yeah.
And we have a split title right now, but no one else seems to be talking about it. Only I seem to be,
building another real world champion storyline.
I'm just trying to dig for answers, trying to do my own research.
And then the main event of the show was the Strong Survivor match, which would determine.
This was bullshit because they tried to. This is basically them stealing the Iron Survivor Challenge match gimmick.
Who did it first?
I don't know.
So this was a battle royal, and then when it got down to the final 4 people, it turned into a elimination 4-way match, and the winner would be the number 1 contender for the Strong title at Battle in the Valley.
And they didn't announce any of the participants before the match, so you had to find out who it was when the match started.
Yeah. So Kenta ended up winning this matchup here, and the final 4 were Kenta, Wheeler Utah, Christopher Daniels, and Blake Christian. So those were the final 4 other competitors. You had Kita, Guillermo Rojas, Mysterioso, Cody Chun, Mascot Arata, Bateman, Blake Christian, Che Cabrera, JR Kratos, Jacob Austin Young, Adrian Quest. I think that was everybody. So final 4: Kenta, Utah, Daniels, and Blake Christian.
Now the thing that sucked here was going down the stretch. JR Kratos was a man. He was a house of fire, throwing everybody out, and just at the last minute, Blake Christian, Kenta, Wheeler Utah, and others eliminated JR Kratos. Kratos is losing his shit. All of the referees are focused on JR Kratos, and while this is going on, DKC eliminates Christopher Daniels and puts himself in the final 4. Christopher Daniels, being a smart man who's watched Royal Rumble 1997 many times, realized that the referees didn't call anything. They didn't see it. He rolls his happy ass back into the ring, eliminates DKC in front of a referee, and the referees announce that he is in the final 4. I have to imagine that this probably is leading, because of his affiliation with the LA Dojo, there will be some sort of program between DKC and Christopher Daniels, potentially leading to the return of Yuya Uemura to the Strong brand to get comeuppance against Christopher Daniels.
Yeah, that, or maybe this is the vehicle for DKC to graduate, and maybe you have DKC versus Daniels at Battle in the Valley, and DKC comes out and graduated in his new gear, new gimmick going forward.
How does that get Uemura over? That's what I want to know.
Uemura doesn't need to get over from this. He can just come back and be over.
But the final 4, like you mentioned, Daniels, Blake Christian, Wheeler Utah, and Kenta. Kind of funny that you got 3 guys that work for Tony Khan and Kenta. But, some brotherism going on there. But ultimately, Daniels eliminated Blake Christian. Wheeler Utah eliminated Christopher Daniels. It came down to Wheeler Utah and Kenta. And after some back and forth, Kenta was able to get Wheeler Utah up for the go to sleep 1, 2, 3, and established himself as the new number 1 contender for the Strong Openweight title. And they did make the announcement that this title shot will be awarded at Battle in the Valley. So we have a Strong Openweight title defense between Fred Rosser and Kenta at Battle in the Valley.
Fred has to beat Peter Avalon first. It might be Peter Avalon versus Kenta.
That's true. I didn't think of that. Thank you for the correction on the show.
Just saying, you never know. PPA all day.
No, you're right. Thank you for letting me know that Peter Avalon has a fighter's, a puncher's chance against the great Fred Rosser.
Oh man. So yeah, fine matchup there. So interesting to see what's going to happen there with Kenta going forward.
But I guess we should jump in the news and talk about what's going on with New Japan of America and Strong.
Yeah, so following a Christmas Eve tweet from NJPW President Takami Obari indicating a change was coming to NJPW Strong, and Hiroshi Tanahashi writing in his blog post that the show was coming to an end. Tanahashi does Japanese commentary for Strong, so they were saying that this was the Nemesis Tour was the last recording. Obari further commented on the future on Strong. On the 24th, Obari tweeted that Strong would be rebuilt in 2023. That was followed up this past Saturday in the blog post by Tanahashi, who wrote on Japanese, translated via Google to English, Hashtag NJPW Strong, which has been going on for 2 years, will come to an end with this recording. It seems that overseas tournaments will be announced in a different form in the future. And then on Sunday morning, Obari again commented on Twitter saying that the show will be rebuilt and focus on quality over quantity. And we had several questions here about this. So Rambone Slam Pig says, what are your thoughts about what is coming next for NJPW Strong? Do you expect to see the talent who worked those shows become a big part of whatever Ring of Honor show comes to Honor Club or something else? The GWK21 says, you see ROH becoming the new Strong with it looking like Strong is over. Skywalker 3030 says, what do you think happens to the NJPW Strong roster, and how much of NJPW USA content would the Strong streaming service have to contain for you to want to buy it? And then Hawaiian Punch BV says, with Strong looking like it's done, is the West Coast indie talent scene going to suffer a bit without a pretty big show for a showcase? What West Coast talent are you going to miss?
Wow. A lot of questions, a lot of comments. For those of you that heard that, that's our dog Ziggy, and yeah, he's getting tired of me podcasting, so he's giving big yawns. But yeah, this is something that I've been very interested in. I've been hitting the pavement, been doing some digging. I've talked to like no less than probably 6 or 7 different individuals that we speak with, that we have contact with, that normally, you know, would at least give us a little tidbit, a little something,
a little taste.
And we were able to find out some information, but I mean, it wasn't very different from what we're already hearing based on what Tanahashi has said, what Obari has said. Obviously, connecting some dots, there was also reports earlier this year from friends over at Voices of Wrestling on their Patreon page talking about the future of the New Japan of America brand. Check that out. And then also there was comments at the end of the last Ring of Honor pay-per-view when Tony Khan made the announcement that Ring of Honor would be picked up on Honor Club as opposed to any sort of other, you know, television service or streaming service. And he did say that there'd be heavy involvement from New Japan and that announcements were forthcoming at the end of Wrestle Kingdom. So we haven't gotten an announcement yet as of the time of this recording, so we're not sure what that is, but I have to kind of assume that they're working out the kinks. But it sounds like this is kind of just speculation. So don't go out there and saying Josh Smith and Jeremy Donovan and Keepin It Strong Style reported, because we're not reporting anything. If I had something to report, maybe I would, but you know, we're not even newsbreakers on this page anyways. It sounds like there is some sort of partnership that is taking, and this is just kind of from all the sources that I just mentioned. You can go look at it for yourself. It sounds like there's some sort of partnership between Ring of Honor, owned by Tony Khan / you know, their connection with AEW, and New Japan of America. We do know that New Japan has, you know, based on what VOW reported, has been unhappy with the production of their U.S. product, as we on this show have criticized time and time again, especially for the pay-per-views, but also for New Japan Strong. And they've been looking for a distribution and production partner. And, you know, you look at some of Obari's comments, and he kind of said, like, they're not just looking at something to get them over during a pandemic era, but they want something that is a quality, not just quantity. And you look at everything that AEW has done and Ring of Honor has done, and there's no denying that they're top-notch quality across the board, even with those ROH pay-per-views. So sounds to me, and I'm just speculating here, either we're getting a new New Japan of America show that's not going to be titled Strong. This is kind of based on the idea that there are a couple tapings coming up. There's the one in Philadelphia. I think it's
yeah. So they've announced 2 shows. So Capital Collision for April 15th in Washington D.C., which they also ran last year, and then they're going to do Collision in Philadelphia the next day, April 16th in 2300 Arena.
Right. And one of those shows is a pay-per-view, but neither of them are branded as New Japan Strong, which is a kind of a telltale sign. I'm guessing that they're either going to distribute a new New Japan show on Honor Club, and that will be part of the added like benefit of having Honor Club is you'll have probably amongst other streaming shows that will be on the service aside from just Ring of Honor, you'll probably have a New Japan show, or they're going to amalgamate New Japan of America into Ring of Honor, and it's going to be a combined venture. The speculation is likely that there will probably be some sort of dual taping situation. Maybe they'll tape one show that encompasses talent from both of those brands together, or maybe they'll do like a back-to-back taping with two different brands, two different shows. Maybe they'll take place on the same day, or I don't know. I'm just speculating here. Maybe you pay one price and you get tickets for a Friday night show for New Japan and then a Saturday night show for Honor Club. And so it's like a value for your ticket. You pay one price and you get to go to back-to-back tapings and see the talent from each brand or something like that. Yeah. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, and I think that strategy would help benefit whatever the New Japan show becomes because they can capitalize on using the Tony Khan production, which we know is great for these Ring of Honor and AEW shows. So that I think that would help the production quality. It would probably save both companies money if they're doing joint tapings. And you could just run one building, use the same talent, and save on production, have quality production. We already saw at Final Battle that Jeff Cobb and Masako Harada were on the pre-show to New Japan talent out of nowhere. We're on Final Battle, and Tony Khan after Final Battle kind of made that announcement that stay tuned for what's going to happen with our partnership with New Japan after Wrestle Kingdom. So yeah, there definitely seems like there's probably going to be some kind of joint roster or joint tapings, and New Japan getting to benefit from using the Ring of Honor production, which I think is going to be good for the future. I mean, obviously, I think overall I did like Strong. There's a lot of good matches they did on there, great programs, but the consistency of the production, I think, was definitely a big hit for the show. Like we talked about on the show, some tours, the production would be great. Some tours, it would be really rough. The audio would be bad. The lighting would be bad sometimes. And then the Fight TV production on pay-per-views, those are always hit and miss as well.
Top to bottom, the production on Strong has never been as good as it was when they were in front of an empty arena in California. On that soundstage where they do Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. That's when the show looked and was produced the best, but it was also the most boring. Once they went in front of live crowds, it was hit and miss, essentially.
Yeah.
And Jeremy, we've said this many times in the past, and we were kind of criticized for it. People called us crazy, but do I think that there were good things about New Japan Strong? Yes. I think it was a great thing for giving the talent that was stateside that couldn't go to Japan a place to work. It was also a great tool for building that bridge between independent talents and domestic New Japan, and people getting an opportunity to work and hone their craft and build their resume and get experience and everything like that. But make no mistake about it. As much money as they might have made because here's the thing, I still think that I could be wrong here, but I think they were generally pretty profitable when it comes to New Japan Strong, just from like a live touring aspect and everything like that. But this was never something that A, looked major league, and B, you couldn't sell it to a television distributor. And the only reason that you would ever really want something to be on tape when it comes to North America is to try and sell it and put it on television and get ad revenue, because that's where the real money is in North America. And this is something we've been talking about on the show going back for 2 years plus. And so as great as New Japan of America was and New Japan Strong was and everything, all the positives that it had, The drawback was that this isn't actually domestic New Japan, and it's not something you can sell to Access TV or Vice or Fox or whoever it is you're trying to cut a deal with. And so I don't know if going to ROH is going to be a net positive or a negative one way or the other. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that this wasn't something that could go on forever. And if they ever want to potentially make a move into the U.S. television space, this wasn't ever going to be the way. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I am curious to see what happens with the titles and the talents, like your Mysteriosos or your Batemans or your Adrian Quests, your guys that have kind of been here from the very beginning that have been faithful and everything like that. Are they going to kind of get the rub to cross over into whatever venture New Japan is joining into with Tony Khan? Is it even going to happen? Like, we haven't had an announcement. Maybe they're still working out details as we speak. I will tell you, I've talked to quite a few people in the past few days, and a few of the answers I got was like, generally speaking, it sounds like people on the New Japan side didn't know this was happening. That's just the feeling I get. Sounds like the word I was given was blindsided. The people I've talked to on maybe the ROH/AEW side, they seem to know it was happening, but they don't have many details. So either that, or people are just not telling us anything, even people that typically would talk to us.
Mm-hmm.
People are just playing it very close to the chest, and maybe they don't know because a deal hasn't actually fully been reached and they're working out details. So as of the time of this recording, like, we're kind of just as much in the dark as others, and those who would know seem to not know based on conversations I've had.
Right. So yeah, definitely a lot of question marks to be answered. And yeah, I mean, I'm hoping a lot of the strong talent does kind of carry over and will be used on whatever future project it was. I mean, there's a lot of great guys on that roster. As far as the West Coast kind of talent, I mean, the West Coast Wrecking Crew, Filthy Tom Lawler, I think you can consider, a West Coast guy. Mysterioso, Adrian Quest, like a lot of those guys, I think would be missed if they don't get carried over here.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's just many of those talents would maybe never have gotten an opportunity to wrestle for New Japan or on this service or in the Cerulean Blue Mat, and it might just be a learning experience and something that they can build off of and take elsewhere. Or who knows, maybe in a year or two we see like a West Coast Wrecking Crew, tearing it up in World Tag League or something like that. We don't know yet.
Right.
A lot of questions are still left to be answered. The other thing too is like, right now, I don't know what Honor Club. We don't know much about what Honor Club is going to be, and maybe it will rule. I'm just trying to be a little optimistic here. Maybe there will be a New Japan presence that is worthwhile and interesting and worth investing into. And if it is, I've had Honor Club as a service in the past, and I'll tell you what, if they can, I'm not going to tune in for Ring of Honor in 2023. But if they can put up the entire
archive,
the archive that I've wanted them to put up for like literally, when did Honor Club start? When we started the show, like 2017?
Yeah, 2017, yeah.
So it's been almost 5 years, and they still don't have the archive up. If they can put up the real archive, digitized with the music and cleaned up and nice, and then give me like a New Japan product, and if it's not that expensive, I'll probably put the money down. But then again, it's going to be really weird to think of how this might affect our perception of New Japan as a brand, because what if it's not a New Japan show? What if it's just like a New Japan presence on Ring of Honor television, and they're just like defending New Japan titles and New Japan rules, and have a couple guys from New Japan like moonlight every now and again, and it's just a ROH branded show. Like, I don't know how that's going to affect, like, say, our awards or whatever.
Yeah.
It's going to be weird.
Really weird, yeah. Well, we'll keep our eyes on that. And another thing here for New Japan of America, Battle in the Valley is almost sold out. It might actually be sold out by the time this show released. I think there was like 5 tickets left the last time I looked. But Mercedes Moné, she moved several hundred tickets. There's going to be an estimated gate of $250,000, a really expensive
minimum.
Tickets. Yeah, minimum. Really expensive tickets for the first, second row. The platinum tickets were pretty pricey for a New Japan show. So I know a lot of people are kind of focusing on just there's being like a 2,000 seat building, but there's ticket prices were really high. They're gonna have a big gate, sold out building. First matchup for Mercedes Moné and taking on Kairi.
I've seen people trying to downplay this for whatever reason. And keep in mind, this is probably going to be one of, if not the biggest gate that New Japan has done in North America outside of probably after, like, say, the Madison Square Garden show,
Mm-hmm.
And this is us, like, kind of coming out of, like, the Access TV television deal partnership era where things have been very different since that time. And the show basically sold out on the back of an announcement between Kairi Sane and Mercedes Moné. And I can't think of too many shows in North America that have drawn this kind of gate based off of the strength of a woman's match in North America. Now, is it AEW or WWE or even New Japan in its heyday money? No. But it's not a small gate by any measure. It's going to be $250,000 minimum, probably more. These were very expensive tickets, and they did okay in the beginning, but after it was clear that it was going to be Sasha Banks headlining the show, those tickets started moving, and we're quite a ways out, and it's virtually sold out. There's like 3, maybe 4 tickets, and they're all, platinum Ticketmaster, crazy prices. So this is a net positive. It's something that, now I'm not saying it proves that, Sasha Banks is one of the greatest draws in the history of wrestling, but for anyone that wants to criticize it, let me just put it to you this way. There's not many wrestlers, man or woman, that you could have put at the top across the board. We're talking WWE and AEW, that you could have put at the top of this card and had them sell this many tickets without a promotional machine behind it like WWE or AEW. It just wouldn't really happen. And for it to be a woman, that's even rarer. So for anyone that said that she's not a draw, are there still tests to be taken and points to be proven? Absolutely. Is this the end all be all? Absolutely not. But I mean, hypothetically, you could have easily put some WWE quote unquote superstars in this same position. And I can tell you with beyond a shadow of a doubt, these tickets would not be sold right now.
Yeah, definitely. And so, I think this just shows that, Mercedes, she is a star. There is interest in her and what she's going to do outside of the WWE. And so, it's going to be, I think, New Japan trying to, recoup on that big, contract or deal or per appearance deal that they have with her. And so it's kind of the first step here of getting the big gate for Battle in the Valley. And like you said, there's still several tests. I mean, we still haven't seen what, like you mentioned last week, what does a Mercedes Moné match look like? And so we'll find that out in February at Battle in the Valley. But, she was over training at the Sendai Girls, dojo once again, and she's had history with Kairi before. And so I think they're going to be given the opportunity to have a standout match and kind of be something that is talked about going forward.
Tam's going to be pissed.
We had a couple questions here from Skywalker 3030. He says, how do you feel about crew and the Mercedes stands having to navigate Fight TV? And how do you feel about crew and the Mercedes stands having to watch a NJPW US show if it had a Windy City Riot level production so bad that it makes GCW look good?
What's crew?
The Sasha crew.
What is that?
I guess that's like one of the nicknames for her stands.
Oh, damn. I don't know about that. I don't know. We just have such a curated timeline. I just don't interact with these Sasha fans at all. Yeah, man. I don't know. Like, she's a draw. Especially when I say she's a draw, I mean, I'm speaking specifically to like her audience, her fan base. So are they going to follow her to Fight TV? Are they going to follow her to, New Japan World pay-per-view to watch her matches? Yes. Not all of them, but the ones who have expendable incomes and that are diehard fans of hers, they're going to tune in, they're going to watch. Does that mean that I think that the company is going to convert all those people to long-term New Japan, Shinihan freaks? I doubt that, but there will be some conversion. And beyond that, as far as like the rest of your question, it's gonna behoove New Japan and whoever their production partners are, including Fight TV, to put on the best looking fucking show that they possibly can, because there will be nothing more embarrassing than having people shell out big money to watch a show with big stars on it, anticipating watching, what, especially if you tuned in and you watched Wrestle Kingdom, you're like, oh shit, this is like a big time company. I didn't know. And then you turn on Battle in the Valley, and if it looks like the Battle in the Valley from last year, oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. So
the Monet stands will burn Twitter down.
Get it together, New Japan.
Yeah, like they have no choice. Like Battle in the Valley has to be like 100% like perfect picture quality, audio quality. There can't be any production snafus with that. Like you have the debut match for Mercedes Moné and this big star, and following up the momentum of her coming to New Japan. You got to have great production for that, for all these people that will be coming in to watch.
I got one better for you, Jeremy. You just have to always be on that level, period. You know why?
Why?
Because you're New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can't have shitty looking shows. You're New Japan Pro. You're the third biggest company in the world. And the reason you used to be number 2 and now you're number 3, you have shitty looking shows in America. Like, you have to have excellent quality every time. Like there's no getting around it. Like you can't be like this show. You can't have dogs yawning and people walking in and feeding the dog and a squeaky chair and stuff like that. Like you're not Keepin It Strong Style. Like you're New Japan. You have to be the best.
Exactly. So other news real quick, the NJPW World TV title match from Wrestle Kingdom 17, Narita vs. Sabre is now up for free on the NJPW World YouTube channel. Katsuyori Shibata vs. Tom Lawler from Ryogoku at December special Antonio Inoki Memorial event is up on NJPW World, so we'll be able to watch that. In an interview with Tokyo Sports, Kenny Omega said that Jeff Cobb should come to the U.S. to earn his shot at the IWGP United States Championship. Omega also specifically noted that he'd like to wrestle Shingo Takagi, El Desperado, and Hiromu Takahashi. So sign me up for all of that. And then last thing here, Johnny Powers, a professional wrestler who later became a promoter for the National Wrestling Federation, passed away at the age of 79. Powers sold the promotion to New Japan Pro Wrestling in 1973, where the NWF Championship was used as the company's major championship through 1981.
Yeah, very sad to hear about the passing of Johnny Powers, and great little recap there, Jeremy. I mean, I won't, wax poetic for too long, but it wasn't just the fact that Johnny Powers sold the title and that he was one of the main promoters for the NWF, but it was the fact that he was the main top star and champion of the company when they sold. And they did a huge, gigantic angle where he came over as the champion and dropped the strap to Inoki. And it was sort of like the coronation of Antonio Inoki, because New Japan being an outside group, they were never able to procure a major Western title for him, whether it was the AWA or NWA or WWF title. Like he was not eligible to win any of those major, or even the WWA title. Like he wasn't eligible to win those major straps. And so essentially they had to buy the belt from a defunct group that had gone under because of bad business decisions. But with that, New Japan treated Johnny Powers like a major name and brought him in to do programs with Inoki. In many subsequent years, they treated him like a major star, and he really gained a huge traction in Japan and just in general with the sporting public there, and was seen as like one of the top gaijin for New Japan all throughout the 70s. So, I mean, he was kind of essentially like your prototypical, almost like a Kenny Omega or Chris Jericho or like Will Ospreay, like one of the major Western stars in the 70s for New Japan Pro Wrestling. So, and a huge historical figure in the history of New Japan, because without him, they don't get that credibility of having a Western title in the NWF title, which was the world belt for them for all those years. So our thoughts and prayers and wishes and well wishes go out to his friends and family and all those that knew him.
So moving on, we have a ton of questions here. I don't know if we'll be able to get through all of these in time, and also do recommended match of the week.
We can go as quick as or as long as you want, whatever you want, man. You tell me.
So we'll go through some of them, and then we might punt some over to next week.
Sure.
So starting with Barry Walsh, he says, "Happy New Year, Ace of Podcasts. If Will Ospreay was to sign on next year for longer and have a good run with the world title, do you think years from now he might be held in the same regard as Billy Robinson? Different style, I know, but if he were to stay on, could he be viewed as the best foreign wrestler of all time in NJPW?"
I don't know that Billy Robinson is seen in that same regard by the general population or fan base. It's kind of a niche historical thing, and as time has gone on, there's definitely people that remember him and know him and everything like that, especially his contributions to MMA and catch wrestling. But I don't know that Will Ospreay isn't already past him to a certain extent. Now in Japan, is that a different story? Probably. But, I mean, we're talking about a star from the 70s versus a star from the 2010s, 2020s, like 60-year difference.
Yeah, definitely a big difference in styles and just how things were done. But, I mean, I definitely think, Ospreay is going to go down as one of the best foreign wrestlers of all time, just based off of the resume he's going, and he's still very young. And still has a long career ahead of him. Lord willing, he doesn't get injured, any serious injuries. He's going to have an incredibly long career full of more great matches. He also asked, could you see Kenny coming out to lord his win over Jay and set up a U.S. title match with Jay, provided Okada wins the main event?
What main event? I'm confused by this question.
Maybe he sent this in before Wrestle Kingdom happened.
Pass.
And last thing he says, are you surprised Jake Lee joined Noah?
No.
Yeah, I mean, we already saw that New Japan wasn't really interested in him, so kind of makes sense. Next set of questions here from Rambo and Slam Pig. Says, the discourse online seems to be New Japan is back. Do you think this is a fair assessment, or was the idea that NJPW had been suffering through the pandemic is overstated? Was Wrestle Kingdom 17 a huge shift to a new post-pandemic era, or just a really great show?
I'd say yes to everything. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be a gatekeeper and tell you, how dare you, like, what was there stuff from New Japan that sucked over the last 3 years?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And anyone that tries to tell you different is clenching their butt cheeks and being all butthurt and stupid. Like, come on, let's not lie. Like, there was stuff that sucked. Was New Japan awesome over the past 3 years?
Yeah,
absolutely. But I mean, the product definitely suffered, even from a perspective standpoint. So if New Japan is back, for the people that have been around, is New Japan back? In a certain way, no. In a certain way, yes. Does it feel like old times right now? Yeah, it does. Is there forward momentum and excitement and, Western attention and everything like that? Absolutely. Are there lapsed fans turning in that haven't in years? Yes. So, I mean, I don't think that this was just a great event. I do think that this is something that's leading to other things. We're seeing continuity in our booking and in our the forethought of like what is going on with these characters and these stories long term, and those are hallmarks of classic Gato booking. So yeah, I mean it's great, and fuck anybody. I'm sorry, but like fuck the guys that are sitting there being like, you guys didn't tune in the last 3 years. Well, it's like they're tuning in now, bro. Like, get over it.
Yeah, and we got a lot of fresh angles. Like this was, I felt like a changing moment. Like I've been saying, the winds of change. Like there's a big momentum going on right now in New Japan. And I think
it's a twist of fate.
Yeah, things are getting back to where they were, 2019 before the pandemic. So he also asked if the company is really committed to focusing on the younger talent and building the next batch of stars. Some of the older mainstays will be down-cycled. Which of the current stars do you see as most likely to get shuffled into quote-unquote dad status within the next 12 months?
I don't know if I would say we're going to see people shuffled into dad status, but don't be surprised if we start seeing quote-unquote New Japan dads go away or spend prolonged periods outside of the company. Your Togi Makabes, your Minoru Suzuki's, your Kojimas, your Nagatas, Tiger Mask, pretty much anybody in that Inoki Memorial.
Anybody in the 050 division.
Yeah.
But I mean, Tanahashi, we're already kind of seeing him being down-cycled. I don't really seeing him pushed as a main eventer, having a ton of big singles matches this year.
Ishii.
Yeah, Ishii.
But I don't think either of them are going to go to a dad because, and I've said this many times in the past, there was no such thing as New Japan dads in the past. There was like, once they got old enough, they just left. And I think that we're going to get to a point where like the New Japan dads thing isn't like, the reason there was New Japan dads is because there was nowhere to go for so long. Because New Japan was the only game in town. There's like a decade where it was like, where are you going to go? You're going to go to Noah? You can go work
Big Japan
Pro? You can go to Big Japan? Like, what the fuck are you going to do, bro? Like, you got to stick around. There's nowhere to go. It wasn't like that in the old days. In the old days, you could leave and go work somewhere. Well, guess what? In 2023, there's places to go now. You can go to Noah. You can go to All Japan. You can go to Just Tap Out. You can go to Big
DDT.
Japan. DDT. There's options. It's not like it was in 2012. So this whole, like, I understand like the modern fans who like didn't experience this in the past are like, my dads, they're so cute. The dads, fuck all that. They're going away. Dads won't be a thing. I'm telling you, if you want a prediction, dads won't be a thing, anything anymore. There will not be a thing called New Japan dads. That's gonna leave. They'll just be veterans and youngins. It'll be like how it is in AEW. You got like no one's calling Dustin Rhodes an AEW dad,
elite dad.
The elite dads, him and Kip and Jeff Jarrett.
And last question: how likely are we to get Omega versus Okada 5 from the next calendar year? Do you think we will see Omega make appearances for the big shows going forward, or was the Ospreay match more of an outlier?
I think that who knows what's actually going to happen or what deals are in place, but I think the intention is for Kenny to work big shows, to defend that title stateside and abroad. And I don't know about him and Omega or him and Okada, but I think that we might see up to anywhere between 2 to 3 matches between him and Ospreay in this calendar year.
Yeah, I mean, Kenny loves Japan, and we've already kind of seeing that he wants to kind of be invested with the story of Ospreay and what having the U.S. title. He already has Cobb kind of lined up for the first program. So, yeah, I think we are going to see him back for more big shows in Japan, and especially for America as they kind of trim down what the America schedule looks like. And I think with less shows, you can do bigger stuff and highlight a Kenny Omega on an American show. Senor Sombrero 3K says, following the events of the Concurso, is Doki holding himself back wearing the mesh vest?
Of course. Next question.
Yes, he is. Skywalker 3030, what are the top 3 immediate NJPW feuds you're looking forward to now that Dash is over?
I don't know.
Well, Kenny versus Cobb, Shingo Okada, and Zack Sabre and Ishii.
Fine.
MJ does PR. Does Kota Ibushi wrestle this year?
Yes, but not for New Japan.
You think it's going to Noah?
No, Triangle Ring.
Probably show up in AEW. Second question, coming off a pretty successful tag league and 2 Tokyo Dome bangers, what are the prospects of both tag divisions this year?
Without doing any kind of fantasy booking, I just think there's a plethora of talent, and not just in the company, but on the outside trying to get in, that if booked correctly, and they don't even have to book that much better, just a little bit better than they have over the past few years, probably have a really good tag division for both the juniors and the heavies.
Yeah. I mean, they really did a great job of bringing in a lot of fresh and exciting teams. So I think for everybody they brought in, if they can keep those guys and continue to bring in new and fresh teams, both divisions will have another good year. Next up from Heavenly Halbeard, he says, after 2 reigns, what is the direction for White from here, and what is there left for him to do?
There's a lot left for him to do. He's never been a babyface in the company. He's never won the G1. He's never won the main event in the Tokyo Dome.
Hasn't won a New Japan Cup.
He's never won a New Japan Cup. And he's never been the guy.
Right.
It's a lot.
He hasn't won.
Doesn't seem like it. In kayfabe, he's won all the belts. There's nothing left for him to do. He's the leader of the Bullet Club.
He hasn't won KOPW.
Yeah. And if you wanted to get cute with it, could he do some tag stuff as well if you really wanted to? Sure. So there's a lot for him to do. There's a lot. And he's never had like a definitive title reign. Both of his first title reign is better than his second one. And, the first one wasn't,
was super short.
So.
Yeah. As far as his direction, I mean, I would hope that a babyface, if he stays around, a babyface turn would come around. But I mean, it seems like his direction might be Stanford.
It might be Western to New York.
Yeah. Next question here from Matt Tawadi says, please fantasy book the Wrestle Kingdom 18 golden roll call for just 4 guys.
Okay. So one of them wins the junior title. The other 2 win the junior tag team. No, let's make it more realistic. The 3 juniors win the never openweight 6-man tag team titles, and Taichi wins the KOPW title, provisional, lineal openweight title, and then the other 3 guys come out to meet the one guy, and then just 4 guys say, "Hey guys, we're just 4 guys," and then they go to the back. That's your golden roll call.
You could also have it be the TV title for Taichi.
I guess, yeah. I'm just trying to keep my expectations very low and very realistic.
Yeah.
Actually, it'd be like this. Just 4 guys are in the Rambo. They all partner together. They throw everyone else out.
They're the last 4.
They're the last 4. And then they do the roll call where they say, we are just 4 guys. But tomorrow night at New Year Dash, there will be just 1 guy.
Oh my gosh. At Wrestling Dad 101, should Omega come back to Japan for at least 1 U.S. title defense? If so, what show? Do you think it's time for Shingo to break away from LIJ and start his own faction?
I'm surprised so many people think Kenny's not coming back to like work in Japan. I think he's been itching to work in Japan for 3 or 4 years now. So I mean, I'll be very surprised if we don't see him at least at the whatever the early April / late March show is going to be called. Invasion Attack or
Sakura Genesis,
or whatever you want to call it. I assume we're going to see him at least there.
Yeah, I think that'll be the next landing spot. I mean, he's already listed out people he wants to work with, so it's clear that he wants to do stuff.
It sounds like the move is to have him. I mean, unless they're going to find some creative way to get the belt off of him between now and next year, it sounds like we're going to wind up with a match between him and Ospreay at next year's Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah.
So.
And then time for
Shingo. I mean, I don't know. Like, should Shingo break away? Sure. Does every single faction in this entire company have someone that could break away and be a top star? Probably.
Yeah. I mean,
he was world champion while he was part of the group, though, so I don't know.
That's true. And then he gets that LIJ money.
Yeah. I wouldn't. If I was part of LIJ, I'd never want to leave.
Grunty Dodds, what are your favorite parts of last year's 50th anniversary celebration? Is there anything you would have liked to have seen happen that didn't?
I don't know. It's a great question, but I don't know that I cataloged the top moments of the 50th celebration. I mean, I don't have like a favorite thing. I think there were things they did that were cool and that were really great and meaningful, but I mean, I don't know if anything like resonated with me personally like that.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing was just the willingness to work with other promotions.
That was cool, yeah.
Saw them working with Noah. We saw them working with AW more, and even some more domestic. Guys were able to go and kind of show up in random places and do other stuff, and they promoted it. Put a lot of that stuff on NJPW World. We saw a lot of the JTO stuff. So I think that was probably the highlight from the anniversary.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that.
As far as there anything that they didn't do that, nothing really. I mean, I think they did a pretty good job. I can't really think of anything besides having fully cheering crowd, which was kind of out of their control. I mean,
yeah.
Casual Manate, why doesn't Doki have a Wikipedia page?
Go create one. I don't know.
At MCW111986, with Shingo challenging Okada, is this the way they finally phase out KOPW by unifying it?
I'm seeing a lot of people question this and say it, and sure, that is a possibility, but I will raise you this question. Why the fuck would they pay for a brand new KOPW title belt that not only is new, but also has inserts on the side of the plates so that you can keep putting in the new annual champion year over year if they're just going to abolish the title? I don't think they're actually doing that, personally.
I don't think so either. I think, they wanted Shingo to feud Okada, but they also want Shingo with KOPW. I think it'll help elevate both Shingo and KOPW to be in a world title main event, and I think Shingo's going to be probably seeing another year with KOPW. Also asks, how do you see the ZSJ-led TMDK faring in New Japan? They have their own young boy now to eat the pins.
I think that was really smart for them to get a pin eater. I mean, I think they're going to do really well. You got Zack Sabre Jr., who is in a prime position to win gold in pretty much any level at this point. And then Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste are, especially Shane Haste, they've been fantastic on the backstage promos and letting their personality shine through. And I won't be surprised if they win the tag team titles in the next title defense.
Yeah, I would be, we see a lot of times new champs lose the belts on first defense. So yeah, I could definitely see them pulling an upset and beating Bishamon. So last question here for now, and then we'll jump to recommended match of the week. If your question was not answered, we will make sure to kick it over to next week and try to answer all of them next week. So last question for this segment, Dr. Lariat the Dark. How much heat is Despy packing? Honestly, from the looks of things, Despy is up for a big year. And where do you think he ends up? I also hope NJPW keeps the doors open and has more crossovers.
See, I don't know if he's asking how much heat he's packing, like, oh, this guy's so hot right now, he's on fire, or if he's asking, like, how big his dick is.
Or is he, like strapped with guns?
I don't think that's what he's asking. Moving on to the next part of the question, as far as him having a big year, I suppose so. I don't know why. I don't know that I feel that he's poised to have a big year by any. I mean, aside from the fact that he is the figurehead of the junior division, I don't know what has taken place promotionally to indicate that he's on track for a major push outside of just the fact that they do push him. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know. Maybe the fact that he's out of Suzuki-gun, but to me, or maybe the fact that they paired him up with Suzuki at the New Year Dash as opposed to anyone else from the group, and that's his that's an indication that he's a tier above the rest of those guys. He's not like bogged down by being
he's not just a guy.
Yeah, he's not just a guy, and he's not like the sidekick to Taichi and Taka.
Right.
But yeah, I do hope that they keep doing more crossovers. But as far as where Despy lands, I don't know. As far as what the future holds for him, I'm just nervous for everybody that's outside of Suzuki-gun. We haven't been watching in recent years where they've reshook up groups like this in a very long time, and it's a lot of reshuffling. It's a lot of new booking, and things are just different. So I don't know what to expect for him, and I'm a little nervous about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's a star. He's a draw. He has great matches. I think he'll be in a good position. I think it's all going to depend on his contract situation and kind of what the plan is for that going forward, kind of how he's going to be used, if he's going to become champion or not. But I think as long as he's working with New Japan, he will be, highlighted and be put in a position to shine. So moving on to a recommended match of the week. So last week for the Excursion match of the week, Josh, you recommended Kenta versus Speedball Mike Bailey from Pro Wrestling Revolver. This match was really, really good. It's probably one of the best Kenta singles matches in quite some time. It kind of looked really good shape, and both these guys are known for their kicks, so you had a lot of great kick exchanges in this match, and Kenta was really displaying his striking ability with Speedball, and then you had Speedball using his innovative offense, all the cool flips and dives to kind of try to outmaneuver Kenta there. But towards the end, Kenta caught him with the go to sleep and got the win in a really fun, about 19-minute match. So it's on the Pro Wrestling Revolver YouTube. If you guys haven't watched it yet, definitely go ahead and check that out.
Yeah, I checked this out. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I thought that it was really good just across the board, but I felt like the second half is where I don't know how, but Mike Bailey got the Noah out of Kenta, and we started seeing him do the indie spots that we haven't seen him do in a really long time, and the hard strike exchanges, and yeah, it got really good down the stretch.
Yeah.
What would you go rating wise on this thing?
I'd probably go 4 stars flat.
Yeah, I think I was 4.25-ish. So I thought I was hearing some really good things, but after watching it, I felt really good, but not sure it's in that, excursion match of the year, caliber. Just, it's just kind of probably outside of it.
Yeah.
And then last week you gave me for recommended match of the week, the December 12th, 2015 Pro Wrestling Guerrilla match between one Kenneth Omega and William Ospreay from PWG All-Star Weekend 11. And this match was really, really interesting and very, very good. I mean, I would say borderline great. But it was just completely night and day different from it was a great primer. I don't know if I could tell anyone right now sitting here on January 9th that they should go watch this after what we just saw from Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay, but it might be a really cool character study or just comparison to see where these guys were in 2015 and how they worked that first and only other singles match that they ever had against one another. Now, keep in mind, this was in front of a Reseda crowd, so completely different style, but it wasn't 100, even though there's differences, there were some similarities between what we saw in this 2023 match and the 2015 match. I mean, there was still that element that Kenny was big brother to little homie, Will Ospreay, and that he was willing to use his brutal tactics and his size and his strength to overcome a supremely talented, high-flying Will Ospreay who, again, was maybe more athletically accomplished than him, but didn't have all the game plan and tools in his pocket to put away a Kenny Omega who was on top at the time. This match was definitely a little goofier and maybe even a little botchier. obviously, than what we just saw, which is essentially a perfect match. But you could see the kind of fundamental fingerprints that were on this match to what eventually became this year's, Wrestle Kingdom semi-main event. So really enjoyed it, really liked it a lot. It also was enjoyable to kind of see the difference. I mean, Will Ospreay's always been a dynamo, but to see his development from where he was then and where he got to today and how he's, upped his game. Very, very impressive. I'd probably go like a solid 4 to 4.25 on this match.
Yeah, I think the thing too, it's like the kind of big difference is, this. I think the PWG match had a more of like a exhibition-y kind of feel,
Yes.
like kind of like, it's kind of, it's Kenny versus Will. Like
there's even comedy involved too.
Yeah, there's a lot of comedy spots. It's not treated as like they had a good like match, but there was more comedy. It wasn't, I don't think, as a big of a deal as obviously the Wrestle Kingdom 17 match. So I think it's definitely a good kind of contrast to watch. But obviously they were still great back then. There's a lot of cool spots in the match.
A lot of big sequences, a lot of big moves, a lot of great near falls. Big style PWG type match. If you don't like PWG, you're not going to like this. If you love PWG, you're probably going to like this match a lot. Yeah. So I liked it a lot. I thought it was really great, and I thought it was very interesting to check out.
Then for this week, what do you got for recommended match of the week?
Yeah, so I wanted to go dig a little deep, and since we have the upcoming Noah versus New Japan match, I decided to dig into the vault and pick out a Katsuhiko Nakajima match, and I have selected his underrated banger with Yuji Nagata from G1 Climax 26, July 30th. This was a match that Dave Meltzer gave 4 stars. It's got a current rating from Cage Match 8.24 stars, or score, whatever. But it is one where this was the final year of Yuji Nagata's G1 Climax, and he was searching for a win. And he's facing young upstart from Noah, Katsuhiko Nakajima, and Nagata's looking to teach him a lesson.
Nice. Well, then for the excursion match of the week, we'll be going to Noah. Noah the New Year 2023, the GHC Tag Team title match where Satoshi Kojima and Takashi Sagura defended the titles against Kenta and Naomichi Marufuji.
Nice. Looking forward to that. I've seen a little bit of that show, but I put it on the back burner. Things got busy. I kind of want to go back and check out a couple of those top 4 matches from that show anyway. So
yeah, definitely. Well, that's going to wrap things up for this week. Next week we'll be back to preview Wrestle Kingdom 17 in Yokohama Arena, the New Japan vs. Pro Wrestling Noah show with Justin Nipper. And if you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation and by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is at KI Strong Style. The network is at Social Suplex. You can follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan on Facebook, facebook.com/Social Suplex, on Instagram at Social Suplex, on Reddit. I'm the Pro Black Guy, just Keeping It Strong Style. You can email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. The Grave Consequences, hosted by Caleb and Maserati. All Things Elite, hosted by Ford and Austin. The AW Match Guide podcast, hosted by Sir Sam. The Great Match Generator, hosted by Danny. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Goodbye. No, I'm just playing. Itchy bye.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.